Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. So glad to be here. I've got the first super chat has already come in, and I've already written it down. And we are going to have a great time here tonight. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and away we go.
Of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, 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 everybody. So glad to be here with all of you tonight. We are going to have a great stream tonight. It's going to be awesome. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Make sure you crunch that subscribe button. Make sure you crunch that notifications bell. YouTube algorithms are always messing with us. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that you're notified so that when we do one of these, you know about it. That's the idea. So yeah, here we are, and we are having yet another one of our streams. The way we do these things is I give my opening remarks. That's what, I'm doing right now, just telling you what's on my mind. While I give my opening remarks, I am writing your super chat questions down. I've already written the first one down. First one came from Jalwu about Serbia and Kosovo. Wrote that down. So there you go. I'm writing them down. Then we'll do the roll call after my opening remarks. And then after the opening remarks, after the roll call, where we find out who's on the other side of the camera, I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. And I call you all out as I see you. And then from there, after that, I answer super chat questions for the rest of the night. So if there's something you want me to talk about in the second half of our program, just shoot me a super chat and I will give you some kind of answer in the second half of our show. Now, occasionally there's something I can't answer, but 99.9% of the time I give an answer. So if you want to change the discussion and point it a certain way, shoot me a super chat. I will do my best to give it an answer in the second half of our show. It is Memorial Day, the day we remember those who died in the wars. And I always tell people the best way to remember the dead, to mourn for the dead, is to build a peaceful tomorrow and strive for a situation where we don't have wars and mass deaths. We had a great intervention at the UN peace rally, the Interfaith Peace March that happened at the United Nations this weekend. Video of that coming soon. There's already some pictures that are going around. Shout out to Libertarian Party, People's Party. Shout out to InfraWiki. Shout out to Space LaRouche Liam. Shout out to everybody who was involved. Schiller Institute, everybody. We had a great intervention. Shout out to the Youth and Students for Peace International. And yeah, it was really, really great to have a little Saturday of action as the weather was going well. So we did that. And so hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. And the way that we are generally doing these things, first it's opening remarks, but I'll be writing super chats down for the second half of the show. Then it's the roll call. And then the second half of the show is just me answering your questions. I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about, right? I mean, sometimes I get strange super chats about all kinds of different things, but shoot me a super chat in the second half of our show if there's something you want me to talk about. Now, for my opening remarks tonight, we're going to do something a little bit interesting. So last week, I showed you that Sansara Taylor, who is a woman, she's not that much older than I am. Maybe 3 or 4 years older than I am, maybe 5 or 6 years older than I am. She's roughly the same age as me. Sansara Taylor, a member of the Revolutionary Communist Party, an outspoken pro-abortion activist. She's been on Tucker Carlson's show calling Trump a fascist. She went on Bill O'Reilly's show back in the day. You know, she's just kind of one of these leftist voices. She's a member of the Revolutionary Communist Party, the RCP, a Maoist group kind of left over from the 70s. Not a very big organization. She decided to come out swinging against wokeism. And you know on here that we are definitely into communism here. We talk about Marxism, Leninism, and socialism, and public ownership of the means of production, and anti-imperialism. But we are definitely not woke. And so I am happy to see anybody who is a communist or is from a leftist perspective come out swinging against wokeism, speaking against wokeism. And Sansara Taylor gave a great talk at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. She gave a great talk against wokeism. So we're going to show that talk tonight, but I'm going to stop it and comment on it because honestly, I don't agree with all of it. But I watched it once. I was in the bathtub listening to it last Thursday, and the whole time I was listening to it, I was laughing, I was smiling. You know, I don't agree with the RCP on much. You know, they're still on this stupid anti-Trump. Trumpers are Nazis. Trump is a fascist. But even they are tired of this woke BS. And so Sansara Taylor of the Revolutionary Communist Party decided to vent at her audience for an hour against wokeism. All kinds of different angles to come at it. I appreciate it. I thought it was a splendid performance. And so we're going to watch it on here and react, and we're going to have fun. And that's going to be my opening remarks. We might go over an hour because it's quite a long talk she gave. We'll see how long we feel like continuing to do this. But I figured we could have fun with this. This is Sansara Taylor going after wokeness. My history professor was a young idealistic Marxist who loved Mao and Stalin before he got a PhD in history from Harvard. Now he's cynical and negative vis-a-vis Stalin and Mao. How can I help him? That's quite a question. All right. There you go. That's quite a question. I'll answer it in the second half of the show. The second half of the show is all you guys. And so that's how we do it, right? And we've already got 2 great questions already. So keep the questions rolling in. That's what makes the second half of the show happen. And now we are going to watch the great Sansara Taylor, despite our political differences with her. She's a bit of an ultra leftist. She's anti-woke, but she's still in the anti-Trump. She's still got Trump derangement syndrome. We're going to watch this and we're going to react to it. So go ahead. This is Sansara Taylor last Thursday or Wednesday at UCLA.
Taylor.
Thank you. Objective reality is not part of the unnamed logic of whiteness, as is absurdly claimed by Robin DiAngelo, the author of the best-selling White Fragility. Objective reality is also not a part of white supremacist culture, as is argued in a widely circulated tract by Tima Okun. And reason and rationality are not masculinist approaches to knowledge building, as is argued by way too many feminist and black feminist theorists. All of these identity politics-based denials of objective reality, and the countless others that could be cited, are complete garbage. They are bonkers. They blind you to what is really going on in this world. They blind you to the source of the problems and to this possibility of radical change.
All right. So first off, she needs to give context. And that's been one of my critiques of the RCP for a long time. It's like objective reality. What the hell is she talking about, right? Somebody who's sitting there in the audience who's not into philosophy is like, objective reality. Objective reality is a phrase the RCP, Revolutionary Communist Party, likes to use. But basically it refers to this, right? If you go back into philosophy, there was a big debate. Marx was a materialist. He believed that all that exists is matter, right? And that was as opposed to idealism. And idealism says that matter is a reflection of the mind, right? Is the mind a reflection of reality, or is reality a reflection of the mind? That idealism is the idea that ideas and the mind come first and reality comes second. And materialism is the idea that material comes first and the mind is a result of the material, right? Which comes first? Is the mind a result of the material, or is the material the result of the mind? The classic form of idealism is the belief that God, with his mind, said, "Let there be light," and there is light. That's classical idealism. There's other forms of idealism. There's the belief that, it's like The Secret, that, thinking makes it so. If I sit there and go, money, 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 money will appear, right? What they call, what do they call that? There's a name for that. That these things, the idea that thinking creates reality. Marx, being a materialist, says reality creates thought. As Frederick Engels put it, thought is inseparable from matter that thinks. Writing it down. Very good. Thank you, John. So, that's manifestation or metaphysics, or right. That's what she's getting at, right? Now, Marxism historically has been materialist, right, as opposed to idealism. Descartes says, "I think, therefore I am," and Marx says, "No, I am, therefore I think." And then on top of that, Marxism generally maintains that there is one objective reality. There is one truth. Now, there are different perceptions and interpretations of that truth, but they are all a reflection of an actual reality that exists, right? And that's rationalism, the idea that there is truth. Some things are true, some things are not, right? That, either I am sitting in my apartment in Brooklyn talking into a camera right now, or I'm not. Even if I think I'm not, some things are true, some things are not. It's called rationalism. Philosophical irrationalism is the movement of Friedrich Nietzsche, is the movement of many different philosophers who emerged that says, no, there is no objective truth, right? 2 + 2 = 4 = 5. It doesn't equal 5 just because I may subjectively think so. And Marxism, right, is a form of modernist or rationalist philosophy that says there is objective truth in the world. Some things are true and some things are not. And that your perception can, may affect how you perceive it, but that doesn't change. Postmodernism is contrary to Marxism. And it says there is no set objective reality, that reality is subject to interpretation, and that the notion that there is one reality, many of the wokes say, is a white supremacist notion. Now, what's interesting is Alexander Dugin is also a postmodernist. He maintains that there is a separate reality for Russia, that the Eurasian peoples have a different reality than the Western Atlanticists. There's, there's many different schools of postmodernism. There's many different schools that object to the notion of an objective reality. And the main one is the postmodern, woke left interpretation. It says that there's one, that black people's perception, white people's perception, women's perceptions, men's perceptions, queer people's perception as opposed to straight people's perception, that all of this points to the fact there is no set objective reality and truth, and trying to impose that is somehow totalitarian and dangerous. I think it's Derrida is one of these thinkers who says that the only truth is deconstruction, taking apart narratives. That anyone who seeks to create an official narrative to tell you what reality is being totalitarian. So she's getting into some heavy philosophy there, but she's not really explaining what it means, right? But yes, Marxism, as a modernist philosophy, as a rationalist and materialist philosophy, says that reality does exist and there is one truth, though people may perceive it differently. So there you go. And wokes don't believe that. Wokes believe that that who are you to tell me there's one reality, right? There we go.
They blind you to the fact that a whole different, better world is possible. And whatever the intents of these particular authors and the many more who could be cited, the anti-scientific methodologies that they promote keep you away from figuring out the source of the problems that humanity faces and how we could actually get free. They talk about inclusion, representation, and equity within this system, but they blind you to how we could get rid of this system through an actual revolution and get emancipated. Emancipated from white supremacy, emancipated from patriarchy, emancipated from the American chauvinism that is killing this planet and that is bringing us closer every day to the threat of nuclear war, and emancipated from the capitalist imperialist system that requires these hateful relations among the people.
American chauvinism. The people, the wokes who burn the American flag are the most anti-Russian. I'm not sure American chauvinism is necessarily the problem. Such a thing does exist. There is plenty of American chauvinism. My whole life I've heard America's the greatest country in the world. It's the greatest country in the world. And you ask people, why is America the greatest country in the world? And they look at you, what? You don't think America's the greatest country that ever existed? You must be brainwashed, because everybody knows that America is the most amazing country ever. That's American chauvinism. There's plenty of American chauvinism, but I don't think that is necessarily what is driving all the problems. It's more the breakdown of the economic foundations of capitalism. It's more the problem of overproduction, imperialism, capitalism at its monopoly stage. Again, even her, she's got kind of a new left language. Are we fighting against people's attitudes with their chauvinism, or are we fighting against an economic system? But I don't know. This is I'm nitpicking here. I'm nitpicking at straws here. She's right. I'm glad she mentioned nuclear war.
They talk about harm and trauma and mental health days, but they never talk about, and still less do they do anything about, the Christian fascist, theocratic, white supremacist movement that is moving aggressively to lock in an even more nightmarish version of America.
Whoa. That sounds exactly like them. I'm not with you there, Sincera. When you said Christian fascist, white chauvinist, supremacist movement, that sounds exactly like how the woke people talk, right? We're not allowed to talk about healthcare and Medicare for all. We're not allowed to oppose war with Russia because Donald Trump is a white supremacist fascist who's going to put us all in death camps. That's exactly the kind of hysterical, anti-conservative rhetoric that defines wokeism. Trump derangement syndrome, that's exactly what it is. You talk to any of them, it's like, oh my God, Trump is a racist. That's that. I don't see how that's contrary to wokeism. They sound exactly like you there, Sincera. So I'm not with you there. Continue.
I am going to get into all of that. And I am going to get into how the increasingly unhinged movements to tear down anyone and anything that does not conform to the constantly mutating standards of wokeness is not only useless against this system and the rising fascism, but is actually serving to fuel it.
Sincera, it is the rising fascism. It is the rising fascism.
This is all the more intolerable right now, when those who rule over us are deeply divided, when society is being ripped apart, and where we are headed towards something truly terrible. But when all of this also holds the possibility for something truly emancipating to be wrenched out of it, a real revolution. So the question before your generation is inclusion in this parasitic, dying system that is on track to take down the planet's ecosystems and humanity with it, or fighting for the chance to wrench a revolution, to get rid of this system and bring about a different society and world where all of humanity can get free. It is one or the other, because radical change is coming. It is one or the other, and each of us has a choice to make and where we're going to stand in this. So today, I'm going to get into the following 4 questions to get at the essential contrast between woke identity politics on the one hand and science and real revolution on the other. 1, does each different identity group and even each different individual have their own truth? Or is there one unified objective reality that all of us can come to understand using the tools of science? 2, is the problem in society marginalization, or is it oppression? And why does this matter? 3, is cancel culture a tool that empowers the powerless? Or is it a grotesque expression of the values of this dog-eat-dog system and the profoundly lowered sights of those who cannot see beyond it? And 4, should our goal be to guard ourselves with trigger warnings and safe spaces within this monstrous system? Or do we all need to get out of our comfort zones and put it on the line to make a revolution, to get to a society and a world where all of humanity, oppressed humanity everywhere, can finally live safely? After addressing these 4 questions, I will then examine, with a real-world example, the massive stakes of this contrast. I will talk about and walk through what went down last year in relation to the assault on women's fundamental right to abortion and the overturning of this right. By the end of my talk, I aim to make clear that between woke identity politics on the one hand and real revolution on the other, there are 2 radically different and opposed understandings of the problem that humanity faces, 2 radically different and opposed methodologies and moralities, and 2 radically different and opposed visions of the world that we should be fighting for and that is actually possible.
I'm sorry. What if I did that? What if for my next talk, I had a big poster of my face made? You know, hey, more power to her, you know, more power to her. That took courage. You know, they're already accusing her group of being a cult and all of that. And she is standing next to a picture of her own face. I think that's awesome. You know, I think we need more faces in public. I'm proud of you, Sincera. That took courage. You know, good for you. But I would never get away with that. I mean, what if I made a poster with my own face and stood next to it? I would never live that down. But to your credit, Sincera, you did that. That was brave. Awesome. Good for you. We need more faces on posters. That took courage, Sincera. That certainly took courage, but I'm with you.
1 requires work, intellectual courage, real struggle and sacrifice, but can open the door to human emancipation.
Someone start working on the poster of my face the next time I speak. I don't know how she had the courage to pull that off. David says he's for it. Maybe Sincera will give me the courage to do that. I would never have the courage at this point to stand in front of a poster of my own face. That is pretty big. It's like bigger than her actual face, right? That's beyond life size. That is awesome. That is just absolutely awesome. She is standing in front of a photo of her own face. That is badass, all right? Nothing slaps liberalism in the face more than standing in a picture of your own face.
Emancipation. The other is degrading, cowardly, and lazy, and only accelerates humanity's current trajectory towards untold horror. And for any of you in the audience who feel you need such things, here is a trigger warning.
No, she didn't. No, she didn't.
Tonight, I'm going to challenge you to get out of your comfort zone. Today and going forward, I am going to struggle with you to actually dig into real revolution as it has been re-envisioned by Bob Avakian and as is concentrated in this proclamation, which all of you got on your way in tonight. We are the RevComs. Critically test this against reality. And while you are doing this and working to understand what is true and what's in humanity's interest, get with and work with the RevComs for this revolution. In this struggle, You will be challenged not to remain silent.
She's a bit too serious. You know, Sincera, you got to lighten it up a little bit. You know, that's one of the problems with communists. It's a little bit too, I am talking for the group as the organization. You know, it's a little bit too proclamatory, right? You got to lighten it up. Maybe open with a joke or something.
Not to stay in your lane, but to throw in everything you've got to understanding and fighting for a different world. And getting into all this tonight, I will be drawing from and fighting to apply the new synthesis of communism that's been forged by the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, including his unparalleled critique of wokedom, or as he has sometimes put it, woke dumb, D-U-M-B.
Oh, she got a joke in there. Woke dumb, D-U-M-B. Caleb is not as pretty as she is. Guilty as charged. That is true. She is quite good looking. You know, I can't compete in that department. And, you know, look, I think she's doing a great thing with this speech. I'm making fun of her a little bit for the poster with her face on it, but I actually like it. I think that's kind of a bold move, but you know, I'm on her side here. I'm actually on her side against wokeism, and I wish more people speaking in the name of communism would call out wokeism. So I don't want this to turn into, we're not bashing Sincera, right? She did a good thing here. Her politics are not ours. She's got Trump derangement syndrome, but she's calling out wokeism, and she's doing it in the name of communism, and I think that's cool. So, you know, it's tempting. I'm tempted to get critical here, but come on now. We're on her side. Woke dumb.
Bob Avakian, B.A., became a revolutionary in the 1960s. He worked closely with the leaders of the Black Panther Party in their most revolutionary days. He fought against the Vietnam War and much more. And through this experience, and through struggling with others over what is the problem that humanity faces and what is the solution, he became a revolutionary communist. But unlike so many of his generation in the 1960s, he never made peace with this system. In fact, his heart for the people and his outrage at the way this system grinds up humanity has only deepened. And he has deepened humanity's understanding that all of this is completely unnecessary, that there is a whole different way people could be living here and all over the world through a real revolution. And he has done the work.
This is just your typical RCP ramble. This is not what we're here for. This is Bob Avakian, the real revolution. Get down with the revolution, man.
To envision and lay out a blueprint for how a radically new society
I'm skipping ahead.
that is objectively true. It's true because it corresponds to reality. It can be proven with evidence. And it would be true even if everybody of every identity refused to acknowledge it. Just like the earth was round, even when everybody living thought it was flat. Now, of course, different people do have different experiences, and this matters. But this does not mean that there are different realities. Take the experience of a black woman living in the Harlem housing projects who keeps the binoculars next to her window, so that every time her 13-year-old son goes down 16 floors down, she can look out the window with her binoculars and watch him cross the street to the bodega to get a snack or a soda to make sure, because she lives in the everyday terror that this will happen, to make sure that this is not the day that he will be stopped by a cop, brutalized, or even killed. This is a true story. The experience of this black woman tells you a tremendous amount about the society that we live in. And everybody should learn from it. But that is just a start. Experience does not tell you why this is happening. And sometimes experience can lead you to the wrong conclusions. For example, many Black and Latino youth in that same housing project in Harlem think and deeply believe from very real, very direct experience that their enemy is another set of youth who look just like them 1 or 2 projects over. To understand what is really true takes science. It takes looking beneath the surface. It takes looking at the larger reality that any particular experience is part of. Does a particular experience concentrate a larger pattern, or is it an anomaly? And if it's part of a pattern, What is that pattern rooted in?
They're disrupting her. This blew my mind. This blew my mind. Wokes showed up at her speech and caused problems.
All right, we have.
Look at this. They're walking in with their masks on.
All right, everyone. I want to let you know that there will be a question and answer session.
Hold on. All right, so I want to welcome the woke crowd, the unthinking, knee-jerk woke crowd. Come on in. Let me see your flyer. I would like one. Please, I would like one too. Here we go. So to all the people, hold on. To all the people who just came in, I'm really hoping that you'll stick around for the Q and answer. I'm hoping you stick around for the Q&A. And if you have an argument to make, have the courage of your convictions.
Wow.
All right. All right, so here we go.
Can you believe this? They actually showed up. Sarah Taylor of the RCP was so threatening to the woke crowd that they felt they had to disrupt her event. They had a whole crew of people come in and disrupt her event. Can you believe this? This is how insane this is, right? She's from a tiny, tiny, tiny little Maoist communist group. She had a tiny little meeting at UCLA, and the woke people showed up and disrupted. You saw that guy was giving his middle finger and calling it a cult. No, I mean, what in the hell is going on here? This is wild. Can you believe this?
All right, we're going to ask you to stick around and make an argument. If all you have is your middle finger, it's very unimpressive, my friend. It's quite unimpressive. All right? Here we go. Woke Mob Exhibit A. Thank you. Thank you for your high-level intellectual contribution to this evening's program. We've all learned a great deal from it.
This is wild. Right. You know, I mean, that shows wokeism is like a house of cards, right? It's a glass house. They are so threatened by Sarah Taylor of the RCP with her tiny Twitter account. This video has like less than 1,000 views on it. You know, they're so terrified of this tiny little room at UCLA. This shows you how important it is to take on wokeism. The fact that they even took the time to do this. Damn.
So I'm going to take a little detour from my talk. I'm going to return to experience, but I just have to say, who is RevCom? Transphobic cult and pyramid scheme recruiting at UCLA. They put this on a flyer, and they're afraid to stand and defend it. And I'd be happy to go at it over any of this, and we will talk about it in the Q&A. But this is lies and slander, and it's cheap fear-mongering and disruption and bullshit. But I hope and I expect that most of you came tonight. I'm hoping most of you came tonight because you are sick and tired of people pimping off the struggle against oppression to shut down honest debate and real searching for a real way out.
She's mad. She's really, really mad.
So I'm going to continue, and we're going to get into this and much more in the question and answer. But I was saying experience alone does not tell you what leads to the ongoing terror experienced by this black woman in the housing projects. Experience alone doesn't tell you these black youth and Latino youth in those same projects who their real enemy is. For that, you need science. You need to look at the larger world. You need to look at what any given particular experience is part of. Is it part of a pattern, or is it an anomaly? And if it's part of a pattern, what is that pattern rooted in? And can it be changed, and how could it be changed? By looking at that reality and the roots of it. Experience cannot tell that black woman in Harlem why her...
Exactly, John, exactly. Isn't it amazing? As soon as she said courage, they all fled the room. Yeah, you know, it's wild. It's wild.
Grandfather and others like him could find work relatively easily, even though it meant being brutally exploited in backbreaking and dangerous jobs in meat packing and steel mills and auto plants. And why her son and his friends and other youth like him can't find work at all. Experience cannot tell you that. And experience cannot tell the youth who their real enemy is. For that, you need science, and you need to apply science to looking at what has led to this. You need to examine the system of capitalism imperialism that is what the oppression of black people is rooted in and driven forward by. You need to look at the fact that over the last 40 to 50 years, this system has gone through major changes. And it has become more profitable for the capitalist exploiters to exploit people across borders in Mexico, Brazil, and China, and to throw huge numbers of black people out of work and lock them into poverty and conditions of desperation. That is a system that you have to study and understand to understand why the conditions of this woman's grandfather are different than those of her son, even as the oppression continues. Science can show you that it is this system that has set up and encouraged the youth in these projects to fight and even kill each other, while also criminalizing them, unleashing their pigs to brutalize them and hunt them down, and lock them up in mass incarceration in prisons that have mushroomed in these same recent decades. Science can also show you how all this can be ended, not by making reforms within this system, but by overthrowing this system. And while we're on this, let me say there is little that reeks more of a condescending savior than the notion that the oppressed do not need to understand and cannot handle more than their own direct experience.
See, that, again, now I'm not trying to critique her rhetorical style here, but condescending savior, that's a reference to the Internationale, right? The second verse of the Internationale, we want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall, right? No one there knows that, right? I mean, they don't even sing the first verse of the Internationale anymore. That's kind of that self-reference you want to, avoid there. But the notion of a condescending savior that comes from the Internationale, but there you go. But I mean, we get the idea, right? That's thinking that the oppressed, don't have a way of understanding their own oppression. Okay.
About 15 years ago, I spoke on this campus with a dear friend and comrade named Clyde Young, who has since passed away. He was a beautiful person with an incredible heart. He was a black man who came up in the hard ghettos of the Midwest. He spent most of his childhood incarcerated and much of his adult life. But he went on to transform himself into a revolutionary intellectual, into a follower of Bob Avakian, into a scientific revolutionary leader. But this didn't spring from him being on the streets and treated like dirt by this system. That trained him to go out and rob other people. He had to transform himself. He had to fight to do that. He had to fight to take up theory and study, even in the harsh conditions of prison. And others had to struggle with him to break out of the ways that this system puts on him and people like him, the ways of thinking. And there are other people in this room tonight who, like Clyde Young, came up under the boot of this system and have transformed themselves, and who will be the first to tell you not to condescend to them and talk to them like children, and who will be the first to tell you the enormous respect and appreciation they have for Bob Avakian because he has enough respect for them to struggle with them like hell, to become critical thinkers and to rise to what they are capable of as scientific strategic commanders in a real revolution.
Yeah, this is this is a point. I kind of missed this the first time I watched it. That's a really good point. There is this notion among woke people that by being oppressed, by facing discrimination, by facing poverty, you automatically have all the knowledge that someone might have to lead a revolution. And it doesn't work like that. And in fact, trauma and pain damages people, and that simply facing hardships and discrimination does not qualify you, right? That's actually a really good point, right? because you see that the oppression Olympics. You can't speak about that. You're not oppressed enough. Oh, I've suffered in my life more than you have. You hear that a lot, right? As if that's somehow an argument in someone's favor. And there is something to be said for that, right? Experiences do shape you, and that there are things that people can relate to if they're from different different backgrounds and stuff. But at the same time, you're right? I mean, that and she's talking about people who've been through very, very bad experiences, people who've been imprisoned and all of that. It can be a struggle for them to transform themselves and come to understand things. I mean, she's making a very good point there, right? I think that's actually a really, really good point. She's using inside language like that because she's not trying to recruit. She's to recruit a cadre, not a mass movement. Exactly. The Revolutionary Communist Party, they're a very, very much a cadre organization. But she is trying to answer the wokeness. But I think that's actually a really good point that she just made there, that you assume that because someone's impoverished, you assume that because someone's traumatized, that they are therefore more revolutionary than you, that they therefore have more of an understanding than you. That is not how things work. It's not how things work. And that, that saying that you won't tell somebody, about ideas that you have, it's a very good point.
But woke lunacy refuses all of this. It stands in the way of this. It tries to shout it down.
She's mad.
It does this, claiming that all you can really know is your own direct experience. So shut up and follow whoever is black or BIPOC or trans or whatever is most fashionable at the moment.
Very good point.
But all this
Very
keeps people trapped at the surface, ignorant of and unable to learn the deeper causes of things, left prey to being manipulated by charlatans who commodify oppressed identity to tell you to follow them, fall in line, regardless of where it is they are leading you.
Commodifying oppressed identity. Damn.
Do we really need more of this shit? More of people's oppression being pimped off of and played on while the horrors of this world grind on? No. We need people from every background taking up the tools of science and the rigor of evaluating what everyone has to say up against objective reality and asking, if we follow this, will it lead towards ending oppression or reinforcing it?
She's killing it. I agree with her on these points. May not be a huge Bobavakian fan, but the points she's making here really need to be made. These are very, very good points.
2. Is the problem in society and the world marginalization, or is it oppression? And why does this matter? Wokesters talk constantly about the marginalized. Rarely do they talk about oppression. But if you think that the problem is that some identity groups are cast to the margins of society, then the solution that flows from that is to fight for inclusion of those groups, or at least some from within those groups, in the center of society. And we hear this demand for inclusion all the time, and for centering the marginalized. But ask yourself, did it make any difference at all to Tyree Nichols that the 5 cops who beat him mercilessly as he cried out for his mother and pleaded calmly with them to stop, they beat him to death? Did it matter to him that those 5 cops were black? No. Did it matter to him that the head of the police department was a black female police chief? No. Ask yourself, what about the 12 and 13 and 16-year-old immigrant children who were kidnapped by your government at the border? They are being deprived of an education and basic literacy right now. And as you can read about in a searing piece at revcom.us, they are being forced right now to work in slave-like conditions in this country, producing products for Ben & Jerry's, General Motors, Pepsi, J.Crew, and other U.S. corporations. Do you think it would make all this worth it to them, to their parents, if they learned that the high-level Biden official who suppressed exposure about this crime was Susan Rice, a black female?
That's a very good point. she's on point, right? Prison labor and the and think about it, right? I mean, they don't have jobs for people, that follow labor laws on the outside where they get union representation and they get paid a decent wage to do that. Instead, they have people in prison labor or people that have been, picked up at the border doing this labor for pennies in horrendous facilities. Right? I mean, she's absolutely right about this. It's horrendous what they've done with prison labor. They've created an underclass of slave laborers in their prison system. And the Biden administration is doing it while they preach about, oh, we're all so inclusive. We're all so woke. I mean, that's great. Now, it happened under Trump, too. And it continues under Biden. And that shows us that Trump derangement syndrome isn't the issue. But, she's got a point there.
Or what about the 526 children in Gaza who were slaughtered in 2014 by Israeli security forces? Mm-hmm. Do you think they give a damn that this was backed by Hillary Clinton, a female Secretary of State, and Barack Obama, the first black president? Wokesters act as if the advancement of a few individuals from among different oppressed groups within this system, or clawing to the top of this system, somehow serves the oppressed as a whole. It does not. Now, of course, discrimination at every level of society needs to be fought. But the problem is not marginalization. It is oppression, the pressing down of whole groups of people. And if you recognize that, then the question becomes, what is it going to take to uproot this oppression? Which means you have to look at the system that it is rooted in. It is the system of capitalism, imperialism. And uprooting this oppression requires overthrowing this system. So do you want to continue this insanity of squandering your energies, putting new faces on the same rotten system as it destroys our planet and humanity's future? No. We need to get organized now. You need to get with the RevComs now so that we can seize this rare time to actually overthrow this system and get beyond this oppression. 3, is cancel culture a tool that empowers the powerless? Or is it a grotesque expression of the values of this dog-eat-dog system of capitalism, imperialism, and the profoundly lowered sights of those who cannot see beyond it? Those who defend cancel culture claim it is the way to level the playing field, to allow everyday people to take down the powerful who they otherwise would not be able to touch. Ernest Owens, for example, in his book, The Case for Cancel Culture, calls it a democratic tool that works to liberate us all. This is wrong on so many levels.
Yep, she's right about that.
First, what are the methods and what is the morality of cancel culture? It is to go through someone's entire life to find something they did wrong, whether significant or trivial or maybe fabricated, and then reduce them to it, shame them for it, and throw them away. Rather than looking at the arc of someone's life to determine what is the main thing about them and how are they changing, or how they could change if they were struggled with, they are canceled. Anyone defends them, they get canceled too.
Yep.
All this erases nuance or complexity, as well as the presumption of innocence.
Yep, she is 100% right about this. No, I have seen some unbelievable cancels. There was a socialist guy in Canada who was really into studying the national question in Canada. So he made a tweet talking about how we need a plurinational socialist republic in Canada. And so a bunch of people on the internet canceled him because they saw National Socialist. And they said, see, he's a Nazi. And it's plurinational, just like the plurinational state of Bolivia. That's where he got the name. But they called this guy a Nazi. He wasn't even white. This guy was of Indian descent, right? But he got canceled on the internet. All these Communist Party of Canada people that are all triggered about the trucker convoy started tweeting out, oh, see, he wants a National Socialist Republic in Canada. It was unbelievable what they did to this guy. That's how evil these woke people are. They're evil motherfuckers, right? They're evil people. And did any of them apologize? Oh, he meant plurinational as in, creating, territories for oppressed people, kind of like the plurinational state of Bolivia. Did any of them apologize? No, they didn't apologize. No, and it was really just because this guy had a different position on the trucker convoy. If you disagree with the wokes on anything, if you don't go along with their trans, anti-Trump, whatever, if you don't go along with their latest shit show campaign, right? If you dare to not join their mob and do what, Facebook and Twitter are telling you to do, they go through everything you do and they find a way to interpret it to make you the most evil person that's ever existed. It's awful what these woke people do. It is downright awful. They are evil motherfuckers, and they're liars, and people are afraid to stand up to them. People are cowardly. People have no idea about any of this, but they're so scared of getting canceled. The memo goes out, so-and-so is bad, and no one asks any questions. And everyone just believes it because why? Well, I heard that they're bad. Why? Because they are, because everyone says they are. It's awful what they do. It's absolutely awful. And they do it. No matter what you do, they will do it to you. If you don't go along with them, if you don't march in lockstep with them, they will declare you to be a Nazi, the same as Hitler. You're a Nazi, pedo, rapist, mass murdering. It's awful.
Accusations alone are treated as proof of guilt.
Yep.
This is revenge. This has nothing to do with justice.
Yep.
And these days, people get canceled not just for doing something wrong, but for daring to do things that are very good, while being the, quote, wrong identity. Mm-hmm. Dana Schutz painted a powerful piece commemorating the open casket of Emmett Till. And this work was included in the 2017 Whitney Biennial. But then some woke hustlers came out and trashed her because she was white and it was not her story to tell, and demanded not only that the artwork be taken down, but that it be destroyed. Destroying artwork that you don't agree with? You know who else does that? The Taliban.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, right? Because she's got a point there. This artwork that was meant to commemorate the murder of Emmett Till. So Emmett Till was an African-American young man in the 1950s. He was accused of whistling at a white woman, and he was murdered. And the men who murdered him got no penalty for it. It was a brutal Jim Crow segregation murder. Black young man is accused, 14-year-old young black man accused of whistling at a white woman, gets murdered. And then his body, it was just a brutal, horrendous murder. So then, the mother refused to have the body touched up, and the picture of Emmett Till's mutilated body was sent all over the world by the Soviet Union, exposing how the United States goes around the world saying it's an advocate of democracy and freedom, but this is the reality of what faces black people. It was a really important, pivotal moment, the murder of Emmett Till and the international reaction, etc. So, this white artist who is trying to raise awareness about racism makes a picture of it, makes an image of it, and then some people on the internet decide to go after them. And if you think about it, the people on the internet who are going after them, it's incentivization, right? So this white artist, to commemorate a very important historical incident that a lot of people don't know about nowadays, right? It's gotten obscured, right? People know about Martin Luther King Jr. and I Have a Dream. People know about the Black Panthers, but they don't know about, before any of that happened, you had the murder of Emmett Till and the Soviet Union and the communists promoting that and exposing that. And that kind of forced, a response from the U.S. power structure, right? People don't know that history. So you have a white artist who's trying to raise awareness about the history of the oppression of black people. They make an exhibit about it. They make a painting about it, that's a great thing to do, right? So then people on the internet decided, that's this white person. It's not their story to tell, and attack them for it, right? That's a way to make money. That's a way to get attention for yourself, right? That is financially incentivized. If you can start a campaign against somebody famous, you can take somebody down. There's money in that, right? Every incentive in the world has been created to accuse somebody of something, to attack somebody for something. Yeah, David Fox is right. Roger Waters. They're doing it to Roger Waters right now. that it's become, social media has made it a game where you get more money, more attention, the more you attack somebody else. And if you can mobilize a campaign against somebody, even if somebody's, doing something, if some person who was African American said, well, I'm not really comfortable with a white person doing that, I would respect it. But social media has turned this into a grift. It's become a grift to target somebody, right? So it's like if they had said, wow, this is a really powerful work of art, they wouldn't have gotten anywhere near the attention. They've turned getting offended and getting people mad at somebody into a grift. That's what they've done. It's really, really awful. And she's absolutely right. They've turned it into a grift.
And as much as their particular dogma might differ from the wokesters, the fundamental methodology is not any different. But let's look deeper. What is the underlying premise of cancel culture? It's that people cannot change. And if people cannot change, then the world can't change. How convenient for this system and for the woke lackeys clawing to get a piece of this system. But this is not true. If it were true, Detroit Red, who went around robbing people, never could have become Malcolm X. Mm-hmm. If it were true, U.S. soldiers who witnessed and even carried out horrific atrocities in Vietnam could never have returned to this country and at great risk to themselves told the world the truth about what they witnessed and then gone down to the White House and thrown their medals over the fence in one of the most heroic and courageous anti-war acts of their generation.
Absolutely. And people don't get this, right? I mean, anti-war veterans are really important. Soldiers who've been there and they've said, I've been to Vietnam and I realize it was evil, it was wrong, and getting up and telling the truth. That was such an important thing in the anti-war movement. And I see people on the internet now, they play this game of like, everyone who's ever been in the military is an evil murderer. It's just this game. It's just this childish, trying to claim moral superiority. We want people in the military to be anti-war. And it's like, yeah, you're right. People change. People do bad things and they change. And when people in positions who are in positions like this whistleblowers, for Christ's sakes, you want whistleblowers. You want people to wake up. And people on the internet now don't get this, right? I mean, it's like that bad empanada guy. He goes around attacking anyone who's ever been a veteran, right? It's just like a bad person. It's like he learned how to be a leftist by watching Forrest Gump. You ever see Forrest Gump? It's this movie from the 90s, and it portrays the hippies as a bunch of disrespectful people who are spitting on our soldiers, calling them veterans. Calling them baby killers. My whole childhood, I always heard you should never protest a war. Oh, you can never protest a war because during the 60s, there were all these bad hippies who run around spitting on our soldiers, disrespecting our troops. And it was bullshit, right? It was absolute bullshit. But it's like these people watched Forrest Gump. And now that it's cool to be a communist, now they want to be like they've become characters from Forrest Gump. And this person was in the military. They're cringe. They're canceled. Like, no, we want anti-war people. We want soldiers to be anti-war. We want anti-war people. We want people to come back from the war and say, this is evil. Like, that's what we want. We want anti-war voices in the military. Tulsi Gabbard's voice as a military person who is against these regime change wars is important. The fact there's people in the Pentagon who are questioning U.S. foreign policy, that's important. If you actually want to win, you have to build a coalition. You have to have different voices. It's not about having moral purity, right? What she said about Malcolm X is very true, right? Malcolm X's whole life was about transformation. He was a criminal. He was, he was involved in all kinds of stuff. He went to prison, and in prison, he converted to Islam, and he became this revolutionary leader. That is so important, right? But if you don't believe in transformation, it's just like, I'm going to expose somebody. I'm going to bring somebody down. They did, the problem with this is that social media incentivizes people to go out of their way to fight with other people. If you're a real revolutionary organizer, your goal is to find common ground in order to get shit done, build a coalition. But social media has created a situation where all of a sudden people are incentivized not to find common ground, but to find something to yell at somebody else about. It's a really, really big problem. Also, what needs to be exposed is who funds the wokes: big pharma, big finance, and other shady sources. All right. Yes, and you're absolutely right. I'm typing it down. This is a great talk, by Sansara. I'll say she's doing a great job. And, if you're with us now, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. We're going to keep going. We're going to watch this whole talk. This might be a longer stream tonight. What the heck? She's doing a great job. I think this is a tremendous talk. I was making fun of her a little bit earlier for the picture of herself, but whatever. You know what I mean? I was having a little bit of fun, but this is a great talk. I am so glad that she gave this talk. Like, this is awesome.
And this kind of transformation can be true on an even bigger scale as we come together to fight to change the world through a real revolution and change ourselves in the process. So do you really want to feed this destructive, degrading, demoralizing dynamic of cancel culture? Or will you stand up to it with largeness of mind and generosity of spirit and work together to change ourselves as we struggle to change the larger world? And 4, should the goal be to guard ourselves with trigger warnings and safe spaces within this monstrous system? Or do we all need to get out of our comfort zone and put it on the line to make a revolution and bring about a world that is actually safe for the masses of oppressed humanity here and around the world?
She's got a point.
A professor at Hamline University in St. Paul warned her students, gave them the option to leave, and then showed a piece of artwork that depicted the Prophet Muhammad in an art history class. You know what happened next? She got fired because some students were offended. Raphael, who opened tonight's program, one time took this poster of people whose lives were stolen by police out to UC Berkeley a few years back, trying to get students to stand up against this unending atrocity.
Good for him, right? Show the faces of the victims of police brutality. Raise awareness about the emerging low-wage police state.
You know what happened? Some students tried to drive him off campus. They said they were triggered by this. Never mind the actual people killed by actual triggers. Just don't make me look. It's too upsetting to me.
Yeah. Part of activism is making people uncomfortable, showing people things they don't want to see, making people aware of realities they don't want to acknowledge. That's part of what you have to do when you're an activist. And if our job is, if you can't make anyone uncomfortable, you can't take anybody out of their safe space, that's bullshit. Sometimes our job as activists, you have to make people uncomfortable. And on top of that, sometimes, in revolutionary organizations, you have to urge people to do things they might be reluctant to do. Sometimes people get pressured into doing things. And people have this notion of like, oh, the revolution is fine. I'm all for the revolution until you ask me to drive somewhere. Oh, the revolution is fine until you ask me to take a day off work, and you can't have a revolutionary movement without people getting pressured sometimes. She's got a real big point. There's so much of this woke stuff is just people being babies. They're just being goddamn babies. Right? Oh, don't show me a picture of someone who got shot by the police. No, we need people to know about this. Don't pressure me to take a day off work to do some activism for your movement. That's what you do. And these people don't get it. A lot of these spoiled woke kids, they want to be communists on the internet. They love to be communists on the internet. The second anything makes them uncomfortable, oh my God, I'm going to whine. It's really pathetic, and I'm so tired of it. I'm trying to build an actual organization, get shit done, and I'm tired of the woke, whiny crap. You know what I mean? The world is a very, very ugly place, and if we're going to change the world, we're going to have to get tough. We're going to have to grow up. You know what I mean? And compared to what I went through, I could tell you some stories. I I suffered a lot to get where I am. I suffered a lot, I mean, it's a hard knocks life out there, they say. And, if you think you're going to be a revolutionary and you can't handle seeing a poster with someone's face on it, or you can't handle someone asking you to drive somewhere or something, like, my God.
I was once part of a group of people who was ejected by police under threat of arrest from a so-called reproductive rights conference at Hampshire College. What was our crime? So we had a table, we were registered, part of the conference, and we were talking about the atrocities done to women, the assault on women's right to abortion, the massive sexual slavery that goes on by the millions and millions around the world. And some student came up to us and wanted to argue that sex work is really empowerment and agency. And we refused to agree with this. We didn't assault them, we didn't insult them, we just didn't go along with something we did not think was true. But then they started crying. Oh my God, 5-alarm emergency, call the police.
Yep. Those spoiled, wealthy, woke kids, you disagree with them, they start crying. Oh man, yeah, and especially on something like the sex worker issue. Oh my God, right? Don't dare disagree with them about that. The sex worker issue, the trans worker issue. Oh my God. Don't dare disagree with that. Someone's going to start crying.
But calling oppression, agency, and empowerment does not change the fact that it is oppression. And calling the police to protect you from having to look at reality does not change that reality. It only keeps it going.
The police showed up because she disagreed with somebody at a college conference about the sex worker issue. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. And she is right to call out this bullshit. And, I mean, if people want to argue about that kind of thing, they have the right to. And, yeah, campus police, look, they made me cry. She's on it. I mean, that is bullshit. I'm sorry, but people are going to disagree about these things. And if someone starts crying and then it has to call the police because someone disagreed with them, grow up.
It is time for students and young people to stop acting like soft crybabies.
Absolutely right.
Here I want to quote from Bob Avakian in a very important work he did called Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating. He said, enough of woke folk who act as if it is actually oppressed people, or as they like to call it, the marginalized, who are fragile beings, constantly need in the protection of safe spaces, lest they fall apart at the mere appearance of a triggering phenomenon. And since when are universities and other institutions supposed to be places where you are safe? Not just from physical violence of one kind or another, and from overtly threatening or clearly degrading verbal assaults, but from ideas, statements, etc., that simply make you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. How are you going to change the world if you are in danger of falling apart at things like that? And he goes on, Bob Avakian does, based on real-world experience of his own in the 1960s and broader understanding. He says, in any real struggle to deal with any real oppression, up against powerful enforcers of that oppression, you are going to have to face the prospect of real sacrifice, including the prospect of being physically attacked. Mm-hmm. And if you think you can carve out a little safe enclave, and that this is somehow going to lead to any kind of significant change in society, you are full of illusions and delusions.
Damn right. You think when Mao had his guerrilla army in the mountains and people would come and join the revolutionary Chinese army, they showed up and they said to them, all right, for our revolutionary army, we're going to do push-ups today. And they said, no, I'm triggered. I mean, seriously, right? I mean, it's like whatever happened. But you know what? Here's what I think she's not getting, though. And this is what she's not getting. She doesn't go here. But part of this is the worship of weakness. See, Part of this is that part of the woke thing is that anyone who looks strong or anyone who looks tough is somehow an oppressor. It is a worship of victimhood. The best thing you can ever be with these people is a victim, right? So if you can be victimized by someone arguing with you, you just won a bunch of points because you're a victim, right? But if you can just stand your position and win an argument, you're an oppressor. These people, it's like they just want to tear down. They just want to tear down anything that looks big. They want to deconstruct, right? That's part of it. It is a worship of weakness and an opposition to strength. It is a very dangerous aesthetic, right? It is part of that Trotskyite, permanent revolution mentality, right? Well, we don't want any stability. We don't want to build and construct. We just want to tear everything down, right? We're just full of rage and vengeance and destruction. It's part of the problematic left aesthetic, I would argue, right? That wokeness has hijacked and separated from any Marxist economics. But that's a whole nother point. She's not going to go there, trust me.
End quote. And here, let's be honest. And let's be honest. The little enclaves of safe space that woke folk are fighting for within this country rest on the horror this country inflicts around the world. They rest on the Congolese children slaving in mines to extract the coltan that makes their phones work. Ooh. They rest on the Bangladeshi women trapped in dangerous hellhole factories who are stitching the clothes that they are wearing. And they rest on the migrants who left children thousands of miles away and risked their lives in deserts and jungles and up against Border Patrol to pick their fruit. But you see, for all their endless talk of privilege, the one privilege the woke identity politics hustlers rarely talk about is American privilege.
Yep, she's onto it. Liberalism, this liberal society, is propped up by a huge pile of bodies all over the world. There's brutal oppression all over the world to give you the right as an American to go to this fancy university and have a crying temper tantrum because someone disagreed with you. Nothing is more privileged than saying, oh my God, right? And that the liberalism, the openness, the anti-authoritarianism of these wokes is based on brutal oppression all over the world to prop them up into the pampered position through which they can claim to be victims. I mean, she's ripping them a new one here, and good for her.
The privilege that comes from living in the USA, a country that plunders the world and whose wealth and power rests on brutal exploitation and oppression throughout the world, backed up through massive violence enforced by the US military. These woke hustlers want all they can get of that kind of privilege.
Yeah, but I even see this within the United States, right? Because the targets of the canceling tend to be more working class people. Working class people, white and black, tend to be more socially conservative. Working class people tend to be more involved in things like the military. They tend to have relatives in prison. The atmospheres that they've grown up in tend to be more authoritarian. Go to a school in a working class community and see if, and go to a school in the wealthy suburb, right? Some of these kids, they live in wealthy suburbs. They don't even have to ask to go to the bathroom in school, right? I mean, the atmosphere that working class people grow up in is a lot rougher. It's a lot more dangerous. There's a lot more violence in everyday life. And this ability to go, oh my God, I'm triggered by everything. Oh my God, someone disagreed with me. That is very, very much a privileged position to be in. And you'll notice the targets of the canceling tend to be low-income white workers, right? Low-income white workers are just the main enemy. Red state, Rust Belt, rural people, working class people who are white, who have guns, working class people who are white, who go to church. They're the main enemy. It is wealthy, suburban, rich motherfuckers who are trying to target low-income white working class people for not being woke enough. There's a class dynamic to all of this. And it's very much that they think that, the working class folks who are white, right, are the enemy. That is really a big part of what's going on here. Got a couple more super chats to write down. Hold on. So we got John McCarthy. If Tucker had a show, I bet he'd cover this. I'm writing that down. I bet he would. This is great. And do you think North Korea is right to ban porn? Okay. All right. Continue. This is great. She is doing a great job. This is an amazing speech. I am so glad, Sarah Taylor. This is like the best thing the RCP's done in 50 years.
Is that what you want? Or do you want to end this? So having addressed these 4 questions, I want to move now and take some time to examine how all this played out in the face of what can only be described as the most massive assault on women's lives, in at least 3 generations, the overturning of the right to abortion last year. I want to compare what we, the RevComs, did, the followers of Bob Avakian, versus what the woke identity politics hustlers did in response to this attack. So I want to start with our approach to the truth. For our part, we started by making an analysis of reality. What was actually happening and why? And here it helped profoundly that Bob Avakian has been ahead of the curve for decades in analyzing the threat posed by Christian fascism and how their attack on abortion is deadly serious and is a concentration of the fight over whether women, yes, women, will be enslaved or emancipated. And more recently, as I mentioned, Bob Avakian analyzed the larger situation that this fight over abortion is happening within. A rare time when this whole country is splitting apart. This country is more divided than it has been since before the Civil War. And the crisis it is currently going through will not be resolved within the norms and the structures that have held this society together since then. Currently, this is headed towards disaster, but it also holds a heightened chance to make a real revolution. This is because millions and millions of people's lives and assumptions about this country are being jolted and torn apart. The ripping away of abortion rights is one example of this. It is forcing many people to question things in new ways. Bob Avakian told the truth about this boldly in the major talk that I quoted from earlier, Something Terrible or Something Truly Emancipating, and in other works. And we RevCom spread this. And we also boldly told the truth about what's concentrated in the particular fight over abortion. That force.
Yeah, I mean, she's wrong here. She's doing the woke hysteria thing, that banning abortion is, the sign that we're all going to be in death camps within years. I mean, again, it's like she's halfway there. She kind of gets it, but then, this is what the woke say. But
women to have children against their will by denying them abortion is female enslavement. In contrast, the wokesters refused to confront this reality. They downplayed the threat to abortion, and they attacked us for stating it. They called us racist for calling it female enslavement. But what else do you call the state violently, forcibly controlling somebody's body, women's bodies, in the most intimate, life-shattering, and life-lasting way? And if you really want to fight against racism when it comes to abortion, how about standing up against the fact that those who will be hit hardest, among those hit hardest, will be black and brown women?
Yeah, but also black and brown women tend to have abortions more often. And abortion clinics, happen to be in the black community, and many black people feel that abortion is a plot to wipe them out, and there's a whole eugenics history there with Planned Parenthood. It's a little more complicated than you're making it out to be, Sarah. I'm not going to debate you on that point tonight. I'll let you keep going, but again, and who tends to be against abortion? Tends to be working class people. Polls show that the lower your income is, the more likely you are to be against abortion, right? Working class people tend to be more socially conservative. I'm just telling you the truth. People tend to be more anti-choice the more lower their income is, right? I'm just telling you that's a fact. There's a lot more to it than that, Sarah. You're taking the liberal position, but I'm pro-choice too. I think abortion should be legal because we don't have a religious government in America, but you're erasing a lot of working class people's experience, and you're being like a woke. You're just assuming that, everyone who's black and brown take liberal positions. Everyone who's working class and impoverished takes liberal positions. No, I mean, the ultra rich promoted Planned Parenthood. Read about, I mean, there's a lot more there, Sincera. Let me just put it that way. A lot of Puerto Rican women are against abortion because they can remember how their people had their tubes forcibly tied. And that, I mean, many people like you, Sincera, support women's rights to abortion because you believe in women's rights. However, there are some ultra rich people who support abortion because they want to exterminate people and they want to drive down the population to save capitalism. So it's more complicated than that, Sincera, but I'm going to let that go for now.
The wokesters accused us of fear-mongering for using wire coat hangers and bloody pants to portray how women die without access to legal abortion, even though this is true. And there are women being sent home from hospitals right now to bleed out and risk their lives because of abortion bans. They called us transphobic, and it continues, and TERFs for simply using the word women rather than pretending like the assault on abortion was motivated by some genderless attack on people with uteruses.
That's ridiculous. That is insane. Okay. If there's anything you should be allowed to say when you're protesting for the right of women to have an abortion, it should be that this is an attack on women's rights. I mean, that's ridiculous.
This is bad faith bullshit. Here I want to
Yes, it is.
cite just one of many places where Bob Avakian made very clear how we see this attack and trans rights. He wrote, "Of course, in the case of the extremely small number of females who have transitioned or are transitioning to males, but who retain female reproductive organs and might get pregnant, they should have the right to abortion."
All right. She has to have a Bob Avakian quote on this. Like, what?
"And to decent health care overall without any stigma or discrimination. And in general, attacks directed against trans people must be actively, vigorously opposed. But in terms of its essential purpose and objective, the attack on the right to abortion is not aimed at trans people. The attack on the right to abortion is a move to further intensify the already horrific oppression of women, denying them control of their lives and their very bodies, reducing them to breeders of children, cruelly subordinating them to men in a patriarchal, male supremacist society. Forced motherhood is, in fact, female enslavement." End quote. So next I want to contrast the political program of Us the Rev.
I mean, why do you have to have a quote to even explain that, right? If you're going to talk about women should have the right to an abortion, you should be allowed to say women have the right to an abortion. And, the idea that somehow that's transphobic. I mean, in a rational society, if someone got up and said women should have the right to an abortion, and someone said, "Oh my God, that's transphobic," everyone should laugh at that point, right? Because that's just stupid. That's just stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what everyone should do. They should just laugh at that point, right? I mean, this has just become a farce at that point. It's become a joke, right? Trans men do exist. Obviously, there are men who have there are women who have transitioned to becoming men. That exists. Like, no one denies that exists, but it's like, seriously, like, it's like becoming a parody of itself, as Jonathan C. is putting it. It's become a parody of itself. I mean, it's like, and even then she had to read like this profound quote from Bob Avakian to explain, like, I mean, really? I mean, just make fun of it at that point. I mean, it's so stupid. Most working class people just want to vomit when they hear this garbage.
Comes versus the wokesters. And this is all real. This all played out just in the last year. For our part, we recognize that if people did not fight this attack, it would guarantee horrors for women and girls. And it would also set back the prospects for revolution by allowing people to be beaten down and demoralized without a fight. But conversely, we understood that if the pent-up fury of millions and millions of women and girls at thousands of years of patriarchal degradation and oppression were unleashed and millions more stood with them, that we had a fighting chance to stop the fascist Supreme Court from taking this right away. And that we had to take this chance, and through waging this fight, we could actually strengthen people to go forward for revolution. This was a real prospect and possibility. It was not a guarantee. It would have been hard, but it was possible. And it might have happened had these woke hustlers and the Democratic Party not attacked and stood in the way of it. But we waged real struggle even in the face of these attacks. I reached out to others from very diverse political perspectives, and we came together and initiated a movement with the Green Bandana, Rise Up for Abortion Rights. And our mission was to unite all who could possibly be united, to take to the streets a mass, nonviolent, relentless protest, to stop the Supreme Court from taking this right from half of society.
You know, I don't agree with her here, but, you know, to be fair, like, this has been her issue for years, right? I mean, for years, this has been Sincera Taylor's issue. She has protested around this. She feels very strongly about this. You know, that's her issue. And all she did was what you were supposed to do, organize around this issue. That's all she did. She protested for the right of women to have abortion, and she marched alongside AOC, and she was photographed next to AOC, and she marched for it, and she got fucking canceled for it. And that's bullshit, right? I mean, the fact that look, I'm not totally with her on that being the end all and be all issue. I am pro-choice, but I'm not where she's at, obviously, right? I have questions about the morality of abortion, and I'm not where she's at. But at the same time, like, the fact that she got fucking canceled and her name got dragged through the mud just because she organized on the same side as the fucking wokes on this issue. But she happens to be a communist, and she happens to be one of their, she's not one of them. She's a communist. And the fact that she got canceled just for doing what anyone who feels passionate about this issue would do, building a real organization, going out and organizing. And she happens to be a communist, not a woke. The way she got, just her name was dragged through the mud. Vice magazine canceled her. Yahoo News canceled her. MSNBC did hit pieces on her. The way she got brutally attacked. You have to understand where the pain in her voice is coming from. All she did was be a good, loyal RCP member and a good pro-choice activist in response to an issue that she has really dedicated her life to organizing around. And they destroyed her reputation. They dragged her name through the mud. They called her all kinds of a cultist, a fascist, a transphobe. They called her they called her a groomer. They called her all kinds of they dragged her name through the mud and canceled her just for doing what these woke people supposedly agree with. They're all supposedly pro-choice, but you're not allowed to be a communist. You're not allowed to be a communist, right? And so I understand how angry she is. She has every right to be angry the way she is, to be fired up, to be, she has absolutely every right to feel the way she is, because she didn't do anything except not be one of these motherfucking evil pieces of shit on the internet, one of these woke leftists. That's all she did. She's pro-choice. She's a communist. She organized in support of abortion and got canceled viciously. And so I feel for her. I absolutely feel for her, even though I'm not where she's at on the abortion issue.
And we, through courageous truth-telling and bold disruptive protests, forced awake millions in this society. Some of us went to jail, myself and others, putting it on the line to wake others up.
She got arrested in support of women's right to an abortion, and they still canceled her.
To fight.
How many of these woke people on the internet who canceled her have ever spent a day in jail for a political cause?
We waged struggle. But and we actually did bring forward tens of thousands of people to fight against this, including many, many furious young women who saw their whole futures and lives on the line.
All you did, Sincera, was do what you were supposed to do. In theory, all these woke people are pro-choice. You are also pro-choice. So what did you do? The Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, and so you did exactly what you were supposed to do. You didn't do anything wrong, even according to their rules. And they still viciously targeted you. While they were all sitting at home tweeting, while they were all in their college safe spaces, you were going out and getting arrested and organizing protests and doing what you were supposed to do according to pro-choice people, and they still canceled you. Unbelievable what these people did. They are vile scum, and they need to be called out for what they did. They are vile, awful human beings. And what they did to her, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, she got arrested. She organized. She's on the same side of the issue as them. She is militantly pro-choice, just like they are, and they still targeted her because they're scum.
And in contrast, the wokesters capitulated in advance. They told people the lie that it didn't matter if the Supreme Court overturned abortion rights because they just helped people with uteruses travel to other states to get abortions. And besides, they'd spread the abortion pill so people could manage their own abortions at home, and they insisted delusionally that this would be impossible to suppress. These woke hustlers focused attention on the handful of people who could be helped in this way, while joining the fascists in erasing the masses of women and girls who are already suffering, and more who will come behind them. I am talking about, on average, at least 5,000 women a month who have been denied access to abortion in this country who otherwise would have had an abortion. And I am talking about the millions and millions more who live with the threat of that hanging over their heads right now in 14 states and many more in the balance.
Yeah, not where I'm at, okay? I'm not with her on all this stuff, but I'm with her in the way they targeted her just for doing the right thing, according to their rules.
So finally, let's compare and contrast the principles and the methods and morality of the RevComs versus the wokesters. For our part, we fought hard for people to look at and understand what was giving rise to this assault. Where was it coming from? What was it rooted in? What would it take to stop it? And to debate this out with principle. And Bob Avakian modeled this more than anybody else with article after article going into this. And Bob Avakian also fought for and modeled the kind of standards we should have as we struggle with each other over analysis of the problem and strategy to fight it. And I want to quote from one of the places he did this. He said, "This struggle needs to be waged."
You have to give us another Bob Avakian quote, don't you?
In a principled way, not descending into personal attacks or engaging in slanders of people with whom you disagree, but honestly examining the substance of different approaches, where they will lead, and whether they will strengthen or weaken the critical fight for the right to abortion and for a more just society overall. End quote. But for their part, the wokesters refused to engage any of these arguments. Instead, they descended precisely into personal attacks and slanders.
What they did to you was awful, and I spoke up. I couldn't believe it. I was watching it happen, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
They spread lies and reactionary anti-communism.
Yep, and I saw it, and I made YouTube videos at the time defending you, and I was with you. Even though I'm not even with you on the abortion question, I'm with you against them and how vile and evil these woke scum are, right? That no matter what you do, if you're not part of their disgusting, hateful, pro-democratic party cancel mob, they destroy your reputation. I mean, I was with you.
They waged a full, all-out character assassination campaign against Bob Avakian and against myself.
Yep.
You know how in Monopoly, there's the get-out-of-jail-free card? Well, these woke hustlers played the get-out-of-thought-free card by accusing and smearing Bob Avakian as some kind of a cult leader, and me of some kind of a groomer for this cult. As scary people you should stay away from, run away from, not think about what we're saying, lest we assert our mind control.
Yeah, what is a cult anyway? I mean, cult really has no meaning. I mean, they do push Bob's personality quite a bit, but, you know, like, I mean, a groomer, like, I mean, is she inviting young women to screw Bob or something? Like, I mean, that's not happening, obviously. If it had, that would be all over the internet immediately and exaggerated 100 times. I mean, it's like, you know, Bob is this old Maoist dude who's got his own group, the Revolutionary Communist Party. She's in it. She's one of their main public spokespeople. Like, how does that make her a groomer? Like, even the language. I mean, it's just so disgusting. So disgusting.
This is a manipulative, unprincipled, and cowardly way to keep people from engaging or thinking critically about what we're actually saying.
Yeah, but you know where it comes from, Sincera? I just have to point this out. If you're watching, I hope you're watching, and I hope you take this to heart. You know where this whole cult thing, the main place that's coming from these days? Netflix. It's coming from Netflix. Netflix is obsessed with cults, right? Everything's a cult on Netflix. Every little documentary is about cults. And you know who the main people they're targeting with this cult scare is? Trump people. Right? It's part of the Trump derangement syndrome is that Trump is illiberal and that all illiberalism is a cult. If you are not a believer in postmodernism, if you believe in objective reality, if you believe that you should give your life to a cause and that right and wrong exists, you're a dangerous cult leader. You're a dangerous cult. It's a threat to the liberal order, and that your Trump derangement syndrome, that you are pandering to the people that are pushing this kind of mindset. The cult thing, Dr. Steve Hassan, the CIA-linked individual mentored by Robert J. Lifton, the top military psychiatrist, who was involved in the Cult Awareness Network, who's in all the anti-cult documentaries they make on Netflix. That guy wrote a book called The Cult of Trump about how Donald Trump is a cult. And, are you for liberalism or are you against liberalism? They think all illiberalism is a cult. All illiberalism is totalitarian. All illiberalism is authoritarianism. That's where this comes from, Sincera. And it's part of the Christian fascist, white supremacist, blah, 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 blah. That's where it comes from, right? So it's like by joining the anti-Trump hysteria, you're kind of feeding into the same thing, right? The language they use against Trump, the psychoanalysis of people follow Donald Trump because they want an authoritarian father figure, that's the same shit they used against you. Right? They are against all illiberalism, Sincera. They're against all illiberalism. And you, despite taking very, quote unquote, liberal positions on abortion and police brutality, et cetera, you believe in communism and you believe in objective reality. You're not postmodern. So they're going to call you a Nazi. You're a Nazi, according to them, Sincera, because you believe in objective reality. These people want to destroy all organizations, all ideologies, all beliefs. That's what they want to do, right? That's their way of defending the liberal order, is they want to tear down all illiberalism. Donald Trump is illiberal, and so are you. You both believe that right and wrong exists. You both believe in objective reality, right? And the cult scare, Dr. Steve Hassan, BreadTube, all of them, they are marching in defense of liberalism against illiberalism, right? So you need to understand this, right? If you learn anything, go read my book, BreadTube Serves Imperialism, where I talk about Steve Hassan and how he's psyched up. Internet wokeness is pushed by BreadTube. And BreadTube is very much a liberal counter gang trying to tear down all illiberalism. Sincera, you get it. You're close, but you don't get it. You're close, but you don't get it. Continue.
They couldn't make an argument against it. They didn't want to stand up and air that out, so instead they lied, slandered, attacked, and fearmongered. And shamefully, in this culture where way too many people follow rumors rather than evidence, and where people go along even with things they disagree with rather than sticking their neck out and risk getting canceled themselves, way too many people let themselves get played by this and fell away. But did any of this woke opportunism reflect the truth? No. It was lies and bullying and intimidation to back up those lies.
And it never reflects the truth, right?
Did any of this help?
This stuff works is the memo just goes out that somebody's bad, right? The memo just goes out that somebody's bad and all the gloves come off, right? I mean, somebody can be accused of maybe possibly being inappropriate, and next thing you know, they're a rapist, they're a pedophile. They can say your group is a cult, and next thing you know, people are going to be saying that that Bob's a rapist. I mean, it's like they exaggerate everything. And most of the people that went along with the bullshit against you, Sincera, and I've been canceled so many times. I have been canceled time after time after time again. Most of the people who go along with it and decide you're bad and they don't want to be associated with you after you get canceled don't even know what the allegations against you are. They don't even know. Right? I was declared a white supremacist long time ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I was a white supremacist. How was I a white supremacist? I'm in an interracial marriage. I've gotten arrested around police brutality issues. I was going to court with police brutality victims for years. I risked my life on a ship to Yemen bringing medical aid, but I'm a white supremacist. And there were all kinds of people who didn't know anything about me. And it just became common knowledge. Well, Caleb's a white supremacist. And people who knew me would say to them, how is he a white supremacist? And they'd say, because he is, because I saw that on the internet. It must be true. Right. And people get scared of this. They don't bother to look into the facts. They just hear like a half true version of the story, and they get intimidated by this social media bullshit and they go along with it. Right. And that's how the wokes operate. And most people are just terrified. They're just scared. When the cancel goes out on somebody, when the cancel goes out on somebody, right? You were a cult and a groomer and all of this. And, and I'm a Nazi pedo rapist. I mean, it's like no one bothers to look into anything. No one even bothers to find out what the allegations are based on. Just the internet decides to amplify the smear on somebody like they did to you, right? And they did it with Vice magazine, and they did it with all kinds of publications, and they went after you. And I can guarantee you many of the people who suddenly wouldn't talk to you and suddenly wouldn't let you at their pro-choice rally, many of them didn't even know anything about what you were accused of. If you'd stopped them and said, they wouldn't even be able to explain what it was. That's how vile this kind of shit is. And I know other people who've been through it. It's vicious what these people are doing, right? These people are fascists. And Sarah, the right wing isn't doing shit like this. Donald Trump supporters are not doing this. It's happening to them, right? I mean, this is what fascism is. Dissidents get silenced, right? And if you don't agree with them, it's their way or the highway. You disagree with them, you ask a question about vaccines, you ask a question about gay marriage, you ask a question about abortion, you ask a question about Russia, you ask a question about China, no matter what it is, you're one of these, get them out, and you're canceled, right? And that's how evil these people are. That is how vicious and evil these people are, right? And that is what you need to understand, right? And I mean, and that this cult narrative, everything's a cult. That's a big part of it. Everything's a cult. It's the same shit. And it comes from the Trump derangement syndrome, right?
Abortion rights? No. It strengthened the fascist assault by taking a wrecking ball to the one movement that was leading people to stand up, and by erasing women and therefore disorienting people as to what was actually at stake. And did all this tearing down of Bob Avakian and myself and the people from different perspectives and Rise Up for Abortion Rights based on the lie that we were TERFs and transphobes, did any of this do anything to stop the more than 500 anti-trans laws that have been introduced or passed just in the last year?
No, because most people are tired of this shit. Most people are tired of this woke shit that is so ridiculous that it always gets more and more extreme. No matter what you do, you're never good enough for them. Most people are tired of it. So yes, the ball is swinging in the other direction.
No, These scurrilous, dishonest attacks aided the genocidal assault on trans people by getting decent people caught up in fighting friends rather than enemies. And it kept people...
Right, that's right. If you tweet out, I support trans rights, and you have a big account, you'll get 3 people tweeting at you, you didn't say it the right way. I swear, there are these people that are internet trans people. They never go outside. They never do anything. They just sit at home all day having a temper tantrum because people on the internet disagree with them. I had a roommate who wasn't even trans, and he got into this kind of bullshit. And I would look at him. He would literally not go outside the entire weekend. He would sit inside and just pound on his computer all day. Oh my God, someone somewhere was a TERF. Oh my God, someone somewhere was transphobic. And he just was having temper tantrums on his computer all weekend. He would not go outdoors once. He would just sit in front of his computer, looking at his computer and having a temper tantrum because somebody somewhere on the internet was wrong, right? I mean, it is mental illness if I've ever seen it, right? I look at some of these accounts, where they're like, Caleb is bad. He platformed a TERF. He spoke to Jyoti Brar. I want to destroy him. I see these videos of them having their meltdowns. These people are nuts. right? It is mental illness, and it's not mental illness because they're trans. Not all of them are trans. Some of them are, but not all of them are trans. It's mental illness because the way they act, right? It's like somebody somewhere disagreed with me, and so I just have to. I have to teach. I mean, grow up, grow up, grow up.
Away from the one solution that is the source to all of this oppression, a real revolution. And all of this stank of the murderous tactics of the FBI and political police of the 1960s against the leaders of the Black Panther Party and against other revolutionaries.
And that's true. Yeah. Before they murdered Fred Hampton, they spread rumors that, I mean, that's what they always do. And that's what people don't understand. That's why it's so dangerous, this internet cancel culture. I defended Black Hammer. I don't know, I mean, I don't know what went on at the Black Hammer house or whatever, but when they got raided, all these fucking wokes were cheering for it. And I said, why are you celebrating that a group of Black activists who you may not agree with got their home raided by the police? That's fucking dangerous. You don't know if they're guilty of what they did. And all these people lost their minds. I mean, oh my God, you're defending a cult. You're defending a cult. That's what they always do. Do you think before they invaded Iraq, did they go, well, Saddam Hussein is a reasonable leader? No, they built the case against them. That's what they always do. That's what the government does before they come after somebody. They start with a propaganda campaign against them. And when I saw them raiding the homes of Black Hammer, and all these people on the internet that are supposedly so woke and they love the Black Panthers and they're, fight the power. And then an actual group of Black people are having their homes actually raided by the actual police. And, I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't even really know the details. I don't care. And it's like, they're setting the stage for oppression. Right? The Uhuru movement are facing 10 years in prison for being Russian agents. Every time you bring them up, people go, oh my God, I heard on the internet that they're cringe. It is so evil. It is part of the character assassination. This is how they justify what they do. Right? And people don't get this. They're just like, oh, someone on the, I said, look, Mumia Abu-Jamal. I've used this example so many times. 1995. They were getting ready to execute Mumia Abu-Jamal, the Black revolutionary activist. They were going to give him the death penalty. And thousands of people, like 500,000 people, went to Philadelphia to protest. And there were Amish people and Mennonites who came. And there were Black activists who came, and there were Catholic nuns and priests who were against the death penalty who came, and there was every communist group in the world who came, and thousands of people piled into Philadelphia, and the Pope made a statement, and the French government made a statement, and it was like the whole world was basically saying, you can't do this execution. And because of that, Mumia Abu-Jamal is still alive. He's still in prison, but he did not get the death penalty in 1995. Nowadays, all they would have had to do in order to kill Mumia was send out the memo. Oh my God, he's cringe. He once said something transphobic. And then he would be dead. And none of these people would get off their ass and protest because, oh my God, I heard he's like cringe. I read this article. It's unbelievable, right? It's amazing, right? That no one has any solidarity anymore. No one has any notion that the state, the ruling class, the imperialists who run this government are the enemy. All you have to do to get these people to support government repression against somebody is send out the memo that they're transphobic, they're cringe, they're Nazbol, they're fascist, and these people support government oppression. It's unbelievable. It is absolutely criminal, these people. They are absolutely evil. They are absolutely evil, these people. I mean, the wokes are fucking Nazis, right? I mean, all they would have to do now, if they wanted to kill Mumia, is make a video, have Vosh make a video about how he one time said something transphobic, or just slow down, have a video where they slow down his speech so he sounds like he's drunk or something. And, oh my God, he's cringe. I don't want to mark for someone who's cringe. I mean, it's like these people can't understand that like, just because you attack somebody on the internet, just because you make fun of somebody, doesn't mean they're wrong. Doesn't mean the government should just come after them. Doesn't mean you shouldn't support them against the state. It's terrifying what these people are doing. It's utterly terrifying.
The FBI fabricated rumors to create divisions.
Yep.
They spread lies and slanders to isolate revolutionary leaders.
Yep.
They carried out cold-blooded assassinations, and they sent people into long bids in prison based on false charges.
Yep.
Everyone who cares about justice, everyone who cares about the truth, and about the ability of people to learn from each other, debate with each other, and unite where they can to fight for a better world, has to stand up against this and start setting different standards now. But you see, the woke hustlers don't want you thinking about or debating all this, especially not revolution. Because for all their talk and posturing, at the end of the day, they are loyal to this system. Their program and their horizons are limited to fighting for a bigger place within it. And they are fighting to channel your outrage against oppression into getting them a bigger seat at the table and a bigger slice of this system's spoils. And the more that reality refuses to conform to their brittle, out-of-touch dictates, the more fanatically they lash out. And the more ludicrously they do this, the more the fascists seize on it to caricature and attack every real cry for justice. And the more the fascists escalate, the more the wokesters retreat from and lash out against anyone who dares to wage the struggle that must be waged against this. And all this feeds the wider silence and passivity of millions of decent people who need to be standing up, searching for answers and fighting for a different future now. This woke lunacy is not just a dead end. It is actively doing harm. It is time. In fact, it is long past time to stand up to this and reject it. It is time to lift our sights to and fight for the radically different society and world that is possible through an actual revolution, to seize the unique chance to bring about what is envisioned in this Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America, authored by Bob Avakian.
Oh boy.
And if you haven't read this, then you really don't know what is possible. Imagine living in a society where the economy was not geared towards profit above all else, at the cost of the planet and billions of people, but was instead geared towards meeting people's needs, repairing the environment, and serving the fight for liberation the world over. Imagine if new ideas, especially ideas that challenge tradition and authority, even the authority of those leading the new society, including, yes, the communists, were not shot down, but was engaged and debated, measured up against reality and whether it could help move society forward. Imagine a system that did not require and immediately put an end to the brutal murder by police and occupying armies around the world. Imagine a society that gave backing to women and differently gendered people as they fought to uproot every vestige of remaining patriarchal attitudes and relations, to scientists and youth innovating new forms of environmentally sustainable development, to artists and others striking out in new directions, and to a culture where people's diversity was celebrated at the same time that our community and shared future was fostered. Imagine all of this as part of a society being led to move together with the people of the world towards real emancipation. Dig into this Constitution, debate it, spread it, measure it up against the exploiter's U.S. Constitution, and tune in every week to the RNL, the Revolution Nothing Less show, to learn more about and connect with this revolution. And right now, as the horrors of this system are mounting, and the fascists are seizing on this crisis that is ripping through society, do not stand aside. Do not leave here tonight thinking, wow, I'm glad somebody's speaking up about this. Get with the RevComs. Sign up tonight. Spend your summer learning about and working with us to spread this revolution everywhere. And in moving to conclude, I want to read and ask you to take to heart these words from Bob Avakian.
Oh boy, another Bob Avakian quote. Oh boy.
Instead of staying
But you know, I mean, well, never
in
mind.
your lane and going for self, while this system is moving to even more decisively crush any hope for a world worth living in. People need to be looking at the bigger picture, focusing on the greater interests of humanity and the possibility for a far better world, and acting to make this a reality. Instead of finding excuses to go along with the way things have been, standing apart from or even bad-mouthing the revolution, people need to get with this revolution and not throw away the rare opportunity to be part of bringing something much better into being. Instead of snarking and sniping at each other, being divided by identities, people should be working to unite everyone from every part of society who can be united in the fight against oppression and injustice, with the goal of putting an end to this system that is the source of this oppression and injustice. End quote. So I am calling on you, each of you here tonight, to answer this challenge, to make your life really count for something at this time of radical change, one way or the other, to think, to dream, and dare to fight for a future where all of humanity is free, to step into this revolution now while the future is being shaped. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Samsara.
All right. Well, that was a great talk. It was a tremendous talk. I am really glad she gave that talk. I'm looking forward to watching the Q&A when it comes out. But folks, I will just tell you that my views, as you all know, are not where she's at. I think that wokeism is the new fascism, right? And I think that the new fascism is not coming from conservatives. The new fascism is coming from the wokes who want to drive down the population, who preach socialism but practice fascism to preserve capitalism for the bosses. And that I also think that rising around the world in Eurasia, in Russia and China, in Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, in the countries that have broken out of the Western capitalist system, we see an alternative, right? Whether it's Nicaragua, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Cuba, whether it's, People's Korea, that there is an alternative out there. And that what we're seeing with MAGA is that Donald Trump's supporters, as much as they don't know it, they're working class people. They're angry at the government. They're angry at the elite and the rich, and they want a government that will make their lives better. That's what they mean by make America great again. They want a government that will control the means of production, control the banks, factories, and industries, and raise people up. And that there's two economies in the world today. There's the system of imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, the rule of the world by big banks and corporations, the dying globalist financial system. And then there is the new economy centered around the BRICS countries, centered around Russia and the Eurasian Economic Union, centered around the One Belt, One Road alternative out of China, centered around the Bolivarian alternative of Latin America. And that rising alternative economy will lay the basis for the American working people to rise up and take control of the means of production. And I wrote a whole book about this. Where is America going? Marxism, MAGA, and the coming revolution. And I wrote this book to explain how there are divisions in the ruling class. There's one section of the ruling class that wants degrowth, that wants to reduce the population, that wants fascism and World War III. And there's another section of the ruling class that just wants to make money. And that we need to strive for building an anti-monopoly coalition, to build a government of action that'll fight for working families. And I want to show this clip on here again, because, we had a great peace rally that we did in New York City. And we were marching through the streets of Manhattan. And there was this beautiful moment. I will never forget this moment, that we're marching down the streets of Manhattan. There was a FedEx worker who greeted us, a CPI activists. We were greeted by a FedEx worker. This is what he had to say.
Yes. Come on, brother. I gotta form her, man.
There's only so much I can do.
Oh, and y'all got him. Y'all got the bodyguard. No wonder why he ain't say nothing. Look, Trump 2024. F. Joe Biden. He keep giving money to Ukraine. Look, we out here working hard. You see this? Yeah. Joe Biden is a piece of crap. I could talk without cursing because I know how to use proper English, okay? Just because I'm black don't mean I'm a curse, number one. I love what y'all doing. I respect what y'all doing. Let's go Trump, F Joe Biden.
All right. Agree with that.
And I respect what y'all doing. I respect what y'all doing.
All right.
Yeah. You know, this African-American FedEx worker, he saw us marching with signs about, no war with Russia and China. And he was with us, but then he also said he loved Donald Trump because he sees Donald Trump as the voice of the opposition, right? And that Donald Trump kind of represents layers of U.S. society that aren't going along with the degrowth, with the grinding of the country into poverty, and with the woke fascism, right? I'm not, we're not blind supporters of Donald Trump, but we recognize there's divisions within the ruling class, and that's why you got to read this book. Where is America Going? Marxism, MAGA, and the Coming Revolution. You need to read it. You can order a copy down below. It's gotten a lot of good reviews. Peter Coffin made a great video of it, video review. There's a lot of great reviews on the website. That's what we're doing. So I thought that great talk by Samsara Taylor needed to be responded to. And so I responded to it, and I will probably, when they post the Q&A, we'll probably respond to that like next week or whenever the hell they post it. So, I really am really glad I could share that talk with you. When other people do things, people that we don't necessarily agree with, the RCP, they don't like me, and vice versa. By the way, Samsara Taylor, if you're watching, you are welcome to come on this stream anytime. I would have you on in a heartbeat. You can email me, first name, last name @gmail.com. You can come on this stream anytime. I would give you a platform. I won't even argue with you about Bob Avakian. You can quote Bob Avakian all you want. I won't push back on that. You probably won't come on, though, because of, my history and, some stuff that, whatever. But you're welcome to come on here. Anytime we see somebody doing something good, we highlight it, right? And that's our attitude on here, right? Samsara Taylor, RCP, gave a good talk against wokeness. We didn't agree with all of it. Some anti-Trump derangement syndrome in there, but she called out the wokes. She stood up. She called out what they did to them, which was so wrong, did to her, which was so wrong. She showed how basically she did everything you're supposed to do and got canceled for it. We're with you, Samsara. We're with you. And that's how it is. And we should have this attitude. If somebody does something good, we shouldn't be mad about it. We shouldn't be like, oh, it wasn't us who did it. We shouldn't have that attitude, right? We got to get over that, right? Samsara did something good, and so we highlighted it on this stream. We highlighted it the other week when she was debating the students at UC San Diego, and we highlighted it tonight, when she did this on, at UCLA. And we're here to celebrate anybody who does anything good, right? Libertarians, that are marching against the war. The Libertarian Party tweeted out the CPI rally. I don't know if you saw this. The national account of the Libertarian Party, which got over 300,000 subscribers, tweeted out the video of our rally. And, we went to the UN peace rally. I ended up speaking. They invited me up on the stage to speak at the Interfaith Peace Rally that happened. And, the Unification Church, the Moonies, they were the people who put the rally on, and they're great people because they want peace on the Korean Peninsula. Obviously those are not my religious beliefs, but they did something good. We'll promote them. It is about standing up to the low-wage police state. It is about standing up to woke fascism. It is about standing up to the danger of a new world war. We're not in this. It's not a sectarian game. My group's better than your group. We are here because society is polarizing very rapidly, and the wokes want to destroy all of us. So, on Saturday, we had our own rally at noon, and we marched to the Moonies rally, the Interfaith Peace Rally at the UN. Tonight, I just showed you a video from Samsara Taylor that was really awesome. The Libertarian Party retweeted the video from our rally, the national account of the Libertarian Party, and Irene from the Libertarian Party was one of the speakers at our rally. I hang out with the Schiller Institute people. We endorsed Rage Against the War Machine. Anyone who stands up to the danger of a new world war and a low-wage police state, we got to get over our differences. We got to build a movement of resistance against wokeism. That's what we got to do, right? So, yeah, that's what we got to do. Check out my new book. Now, if you can all remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Now, we're going to do the roll call. We are going to do the roll call. So there you go. What about those who hate communism? Saying that they are good communists and bad ones, a good idea? All right. So names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. And I appreciate your question, Phil. That's a very good question, and I will give you an answer to it. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. We're going to do the roll call, and then I'm going to start answering your super chat questions. We got Calvin from Canada. We got Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Jonathan in Los Angeles. John McCarthy in Chicago. Colin in Greensboro. St. David's from Bermuda. We got Steve in Boston, Balthazar in Oakland, Riverside County, California, Stephen Morris. Oh, yeah, it's cold and rough, Gavin Lockhart. Killian in Milwaukee, Socked in Beachlight, California, Patch in Arizona, AJ from NJ, Edwin in the Philippines, Zachary Brunch, who's great. He's great, by the way. Zachary on TikTok. Go and subscribe to his TikTok channel. He's doing great work. Zaire from Denmark, Anthony from Detroit, Ontario, Canada, James Lizer, Vancouver, Isaac, Heidi in Edinburgh, Scotland, Bob Troy in New York, Vancouver, Canada, Briggy in Pennsylvania, beloved member of our organization, Briggy in Pennsylvania, Southern California, USA, Buttercup Taylor. We got Storm in Gary, Indiana. I've been to Gary. That's part of Chicagoland. I've been there. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of labor history there with the steel workers. Brendan in Palo Alto, California. London, Clinton Fraser is in London. Welcome, Clinton Fraser. Welcome, welcome. We got Mariah in North Carolina. Mariah is awesome. Always glad to have you here, Mariah. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell. Names and locations. We're calling out people as we see them. Micah in Las Vegas. Cher from Cape May. Temple City, California. Very, very, very good. Names and locations. Southern California, USA, Buttercup Taylor. Zephyr in Eugene, Oregon. A lot of great CPI members out in Oregon. Our president, Elizabeth, is in Oregon. Bendigo, Australia, David Fox. JT24 in Mississippi. Oh, wow. All over the country. We are everywhere. Bethesda, Maryland, right? That's great. That's great. You know, we got, Mindanao to Midwest, Olympia Logic, beloved member of our group. Molly McGuire in Orange County. Welcome, Molly McGuire. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, folks, we are going to start answering your super chat questions. And you all provided a lot of questions tonight to get me talking, but keep them rolling in. I always want to remind you all, maybe I sound like a broken record, but lately I've been repeating this, that right now, there's between, tonight it's been over about 200 watching. It's about 150. It's been going up and down, but there's a decent number of people watching tonight. But afterwards, there's usually about 1,000 to 2,000 people who watch this afterwards, right? That's usually how it goes, right? Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's closer to 1,000, sometimes it's closer to 2,000. That's generally what we get in terms of unique views. In unique viewers, we tend to have between 1,000 and 2,000 unique viewers of every stream. Now, those of you who are watching live, you are very, very privileged because you are watching this as I'm doing it, and you have the ability to influence how this goes. Those of you who are watching this afterwards, you're just seeing what already happened. But those of you watching live have the ability to influence the conversation. You can ask me about whatever you want, and I will do my best to give you an answer about whatever you want. And so if you send me a super chat, and we're entering our third hour, and that's fine. I got plenty of energy. I slept in today. It's Memorial Day. Had the day off work. If you send a super chat, you have the ability to craft the conversation on these streams the way you want it to go. You can make this stream go however you want. So if there's something you want me to engage with or talk about, send me a super chat, and I will do my best to answer it. You have that ability. Those of you watching right now, those 154 of you watching right now, you have the ability to make this conversation go the way you want. So I would encourage you, if you can, to send me a super chat, because that would direct the conversation the way you want. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell, and let's start answering super chat questions. The first one, can you provide the context to what's happening in Serbia, Kosovo right now? Kosovo is not a country, all right? Serbia is a country. Serbia was part of Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia, the Federation of Yugoslavia. It was various Slavic nationalities unified into one nation, Yugoslavia. And it was led by Tito. It was a socialist country. The Socialist Party of Yugoslavia led Yugoslavia, Josip Broz Tito. We know that starting in the 1990s, the USA started funding ethnic nationalist movements to break apart the former Yugoslavia. Serbia was a stronghold of socialism, and it was one of the last republics in former Yugoslavia that maintained the leadership. Slobodan Milosevic, a Marxist, was widely decried as being a hardline Stalinist, a hardline communist. He maintained the socialist economic system of Serbia. Now, the wealth of Serbia, the mines in particular, the minerals, tend to be located in a region of Serbia called Kosovo. And have you heard about the Germany recession? Writing it down. Kosovo is a region of Serbia. It is not a nation. It is not a nation, okay? It is a region of Serbia. And it's where a lot of its natural wealth are, mines, minerals, etc. And after Albania, after the fall of socialist Albania, after the Enver Hoxha government fell, after Albania returned to capitalism, after the overthrow of the Party of Labor, when Albania restored capitalism, many people in Albania became desperately poor. And so many Albanians began to flee from Albania to Serbia because Serbia still had a state-run economy. It still provided jobs. And so many ethnic Albanians, people from Albania who were Muslims, fled to Kosovo to work in those mines, to get jobs, etc. And so thousands of migrants from Albania fled to Kosovo. And so they moved to this part of Serbia called Kosovo. Many of them were Muslim. Almost all of them were Muslim. Albania is about half and half, Muslims and Christians. And that's why the communist government of Albania was very anti-religious, much more anti-religious than most communist governments, because it feared that the Muslim and Christian divide would be used to foment civil war in the country. So they cracked down on all religion ridiculously. I mean, extremely, hard in Albania. Enver Hoxha's government was notoriously anti-religious. I've talked to Albanians about this. It's actually very interesting. Apparently, in the Muslim regions of Albania, they did allow some of the Islamic traditions. Like they had very harsh penalties for women being scantily clad, stuff like that. They did some cultural stuff that held on to the Islamic heritage. But regardless, after the fall of Albania, many Albanians moved to Kosovo because they needed jobs. They moved to this region of Serbia called Kosovo because they needed jobs. And because they moved there, they were migrants. And they obviously had a lower standard of living than the most of the population. There were many Serbs living in Kosovo who resented them being there. Kosovo, it's a part of Serbia. The people in Serbia tend to be Christians, right? The Albanians who are pouring in tend to be Muslims. There started to be a divide. So then Saudi Arabia and the U.S. government began arming Muslim fundamentalists in Kosovo, and they formed something called the Kosovo Liberation Army, the KLA. And the Kosovo Liberation Army, the KLA, was an Islamic separatist group. They wanted to break Kosovo away from Serbia and make it an Islamic state, make it a theocratic Muslim state. And it was Osama bin Laden, and it was the Saudis, and it was Wahhabis. It was all the Wahhabi extreme Islamic Sunni Wahhabi fanatics. They were fighting to break Kosovo away from Serbia and establish an Islamic government. Serbia, of course, didn't agree. And so the Serbian military went in to fight the Kosovo Liberation Army. And there was a civil war going on between the Kosovo Liberation Army and the Serbian military. There were atrocities in this civil war. Absolutely. On both sides. The Kosovo Liberation Army did awful things, cut people's heads off, tortured people, did a lot of awful things. However, the Serbian military also did some bad things, right? There were, civilians who were killed. Atrocities happen in war. However, in U.S. media, they said that Serbia and the Serbs were committing genocide against Albanians. Bullshit. The UN has now admitted that didn't happen. Right? There were atrocities committed, but the idea they were just rounding up all the Albanians or all the Muslims and killing them, that wasn't true. But there was a photograph that they took. I have some of the books because, the lies they told in the lead up to it. The debunking of those lies has been, I've got a couple books that just go into great detail debunking the propaganda that was just, I mean, they told every lie. I mean, they really viciously lied. This is a great book on the topic by Michael Parenti. It's called To Kill a Nation, The Attack on Yugoslavia. And he describes in detail how they just lied, right? And they just did everything they could to foment the civil war, to demonize the Serbian government. That's a great book. To Kill a Nation is a great book on that topic. But there's other very good books on this topic. Let me see. There's a very good book, and for many years I was part of the Workers' World Party, and the Workers' World Party defended Serbia, socialist Serbia, against the civil war that was being fomented by the imperialists. And so they published a number of very good books on the topic, with essays by Michael Parenti, by Ramsey Clark, by other people. I have a number of books on the other shelf I can't reach. I can show you about this topic. There's a lot that's been written to show how this claim that Serbia was committing ethnic cleansing, was committing genocide, that was bullshit, right? And so, as a result of this, Bill Clinton bombed Serbia in 1999. And he bombed some of the oldest Orthodox churches in the world and destroyed them. He bombed the power plants and the infrastructure. It was a crime against humanity. And so ever since then, many people in Serbia have been, and even at the time, but there's a strong anti-imperialist sentiment in Serbia. And there's a strong anti-Islamic sentiment too, that Muslims are terrorists because the Kosovo Liberation Army was terrorists and was terrorizing them. And that Bill Clinton and the Western imperialists, bombed them and destroyed them. There's a strong feeling there. That's why right now in Serbia, even though Serbia is, I believe, a member of NATO, there are many, many, many pro-Russian people in Serbia. There are huge rallies in support of Russia in Serbia, marching. Kosovo has been broken away from Serbia, and it's basically a colony of the United Nations. The people living in Kosovo don't even get to pick the government. It's basically the UN picks the government. It's like a little colony that the Western imperialists have carved out. It's awful what's happened. Kosovo is part of Serbia. And the Serbian people, because of what Bill Clinton did to them and because of the funding of the Kosovo Liberation Army, are very pro-Russian and anti-imperialist. So I was asked for context of what happened in Serbia with Kosovo, and I'm giving you an answer. That is the answer, right? That the U.S. imperialists, Serbia is not in NATO. Thank you for the correction, Johnny Blaze. If anyone would know, it would be Johnny Blaze. He's given great topics on that. Serbia is not in NATO, and it's not in the European Union, and there's a stronghold. There's a lot of Serbians that are very pro-Russian and very anti-imperialist because of what they went through, because of what they've endured. Thank you for correcting me, Johnny. And that's the context for what happened. So there you go. All right. Now, someone said this history professor was a young Marxist who liked Stalin and Mao, but now he's cynical and negative vis-a-vis Stalin and Mao. How can I help him? Well, the guy's a history professor, and he's a history professor in America. And one thing that Dr. Grover Furr has pointed out is that in American academia, you have what's called the anti-Stalin paradigm, which is you are not allowed to say anything good about Stalin. You're not allowed to say anything good about Stalin, anything good about Mao, or you'll have your career destroyed. I mean, it is just an unforgivable crime. And if he's studying history, that's the field where people who rise up the ranks of academia talking bullshit against Stalin and against Mao. I mean, look, the head of Russian studies at Yale is a complete fraud named Timothy Snyder. Go and read Grover Furr's book, Blood Lies. Timothy Snyder at Yale is a lying sack of shit. His book, Blood Lies, or Bloodlands, that he wrote, saying that Stalin and the communists were worse than the Nazis in World War II, is just full of lies. There are just many distortions in the book where he's just not representing his sources accurately. He's just lying, right? For example, one of the things he uses is he says Soviet, troops and Soviet military people frequently raped Ukrainian women. Right? That's one of the things he claims. And you know what his evidence of it is a soldier who did that being put on trial and arrested. So how is that evidence of that? Somebody did that and they got arrested. So how's that evidence that, Stalin was sending his soldiers out to go rape the Ukrainian women all the time? That's just not, if your source is somebody doing that and getting arrested for it, that's not proof that Stalin was doing that intentionally. There's so many distortions in what Timothy Snyder says, and Grover Furr just rips him to shreds. But Timothy Snyder has risen up the ranks at Yale, as this kind of woke, this woke, anti-fascist, anti-totalitarian, blah, 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 blah. And it's bullshit. It's all a bunch of bullshit. It's bull honky, right? And so I just wanted to mention that. So there you go. There you go. All right. And, so this professor, he's had to sit there, and if he's going to have any career in academia, look, I would point out to him that, look, he's an academic. Academia is really, it's about playing the game. Look, anyone who is in academia long enough knows you just have to play the game, right? Academia is not about objective. They say academia is all about objective, making everything objective. Bullshit. No, it's not. Academia is one of the most rigged places. If you say what they want to hear, you rise up the ranks. If you don't say what they want to hear, you move down. They teach you to write in a non-popular way. They go out of their way to teach you to write in this snobby, elitist way that's not in touch with what most people believe. I mean, it's awful what they do in academia. It's really, really awful what they do in academia. And academia is rigged. And so this guy has had to be an academic, and he's had to learn to play the game. And as you learn to play the game, you unlearn how to be a revolutionary. So that exists, there you go. All right. June 10th is the 60th anniversary of Kennedy's peace speech, and Schiller Institute is calling for people to have viewing parties. Well, maybe we'll do that on here. Maybe we'll show John F. Kennedy's peace speech on this stream. Why not, right? I mean, maybe we'll do that. Let's see what happens as June 10th approaches. I'm open to that. John F. Kennedy, I believe he was killed by the military-industrial complex because he was moving in a direction of having better relations with Russia and China. I uphold the thesis of the Yankee and Cowboy War book, which was kind of echoed by Sam Marcy and the Workers' World Party, that it was basically a military assassination. It was a firing squad. The John F. Kennedy was killed because he didn't want to escalate against Vietnam. He had more of a soft power strategy for fighting communism, created the Peace Corps, etc. And I do know in one of his final speeches, he did call for the moon mission, the project of going to the moon, to be a joint Soviet and American operation. Imagine how that would have been if there'd been a Soviet astronaut along with Neil Armstrong and they'd gone to the moon together, So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll show it on this stream. I mean, the assassination of Kennedy was an important moment. So there you go. All right. The next super chat, someone said the revolution will not come from the left. And that is absolutely true. And that's the point that I'm making in my book, right? In my book, I am making the point that we need to get out of the movement into the masses. And that the masses that are rallying around Trump says a lot of awful things. But at the end of the day, what they want from Trump, even though Trump is not giving it to them, is they want a working class government, and they want anti-imperialism. And that's who we need to talk to. We need to find a way to talk to Trump supporters. And the left is dead. Look what they did to Sarah Taylor, right? All she did was rally and organize for something they supposedly believe in. And they destroyed her reputation and drug her name through the mud, called her a cultist, called her a groomer. The left is dead. Wokeism is fascism. The left is dead. It is pessimistic. We got to get out of the movement into the masses. And it is with the masses of people and building a working class popular movement. That is where the future lies. So there you go. As soon as she said courage, they all fled the room, points out John McCarthy. Absolutely correct. You are absolutely right about that. Right? They all ran out of the room as soon as she said courage, because they have no courage. Cancelers, they're good at throwing shit at people. They're not good at fighting for their position. Right? They're good at calling the police. They're not good at actually, having a strong argument. Right? They want to be victims. They don't want to actually, engage, and they don't want to learn anything. And that's what I've learned in my experience being canceled and being smeared. They don't want to learn anything. They're scared of learning, because if they learn something and it goes against what wokeism says, they might get canceled for it. They're scared of learning, because learning might lead to them thinking impure thoughts and getting canceled for it. If you engage with somebody, if you learn something, you might get in trouble for it. They're afraid of thinking. They're thought conformists. They're weak people. They're cowards, and they're channeling their aggression out on the internet on people they disagree with. All right. Now, David Fox says it needs to be exposed who funds the wokes, big pharma and big finance, among other shady sources. Absolutely. Grant money pays for Black Lives Matter, pays for the trans rights movement, but it's more than that, right? We now know that Twitter is fucking rigged. Matt Taibbi revealed this. The FBI was sitting there and deciding who got canceled. Like, there were FBI men that would say, all right, we want this person to get canceled, boost the tweets attacking them. Oh, we want to suppress this person's account, make sure they don't get more followers. They literally, the FBI was sitting there with Twitter, running it, deciding who got canceled, what issues got popular, what issues didn't. The FBI, one of America's intelligence agencies, was managing fucking Twitter. We know this. This is a fact, right? And that's why Sincera's talk, it was great in many, many ways, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. Like, the reason her group, she was on the woke side of the issue. She was pro-choice, but she got canceled. Why? Because the FBI doesn't like the RCP. That's why. The FBI, as Matt Taibbi revealed, was on the phone with the Twitter bosses, and they decided to cancel her. And the mainstream media that's also in bed with the FBI, like Vice, like Yahoo News, like The Intercept that canceled her, are also, I mean, cancel culture is not democratic in any way, right? It's not like it's just random who gets canceled or where the outrage comes from. No, it is very strategic. If they want a tweet attacking someone to go viral, it does. If they want a tweet attacking someone to not get attention, it doesn't get attention, right? Why do you think nobody talks about Kamala Harris's background? When Barack Obama was running for president, we learned all about his pastor, Jeremiah Wright. We learned that he went to a Muslim school. Oh my God, we practically, I mean, it was all over the media. Everything Barack Obama had ever done in his life. Barack Obama once farted when he walked into a room. Barack Obama went to Harvard and had this professor. Kamala Harris, who's a missed heartbeat by Joe Biden away from being president, no one knows anything about her. And I am one of the only people who has bothered to dig into her. And that's because someone who knows her father came to me and told me about how important it was to look into her, gave me information about her father, and said, you need to do something with this, Caleb. And so I wrote a book about it, Kamala Harris and the Future of America. And that book got a fair amount of attention. It got reviewed in newspapers, print newspapers, mind you, in India. It got reviewed. My book actually got reviewed. My book on Kamala Harris got reviewed in the Morning Star, the communist daily newspaper of the United Kingdom. I'll drop the link in the chat. My book on Kamala Harris, it got widely reviewed. People said, this is something. This piece you wrote, this book you wrote, it gets into really a great amount of depth. I was invited to speak at a lot of different Marxist forums about it, but Twitter did everything they could to suppress it. Nobody talks about Donald Harris, Kamala Harris's father. Go and read the review of my book, published by the Morning Star. Print newspaper reviewed it. Go and buy my book on Kamala Harris. My book on Kamala Harris will blow your mind, right? Kamala Harris, everything about her. Joe Biden didn't even want to pick her as his running mate. Okay, folks, my book on Kamala Harris will blow your mind, and nobody talks about any of it, right? It's all off limits. It's all off limits as far as the ruling class is concerned. No one knows anything about Kamala Harris, the drugged up nut job who is on the brink of becoming president of the United States, who, with her slurred speech about the coconut tree and the significance of the passage of time, Go and read my book on Kamala Harris, right? Gribble Report says it's a jaw-dropping book. And I didn't have to do that much research. I just dug a little bit into who her father is. I just dug a little bit into Tulsi Gabbard, and oh my God. And Tulsi Gabbard has basically admitted she's read my book. She references it in interviews a lot. She's terrified of Kamala Harris becoming president. She says people in the military are terrified. My book on Kamala Harris, it should be widely read. You know what I mean? I mean, it should be widely discussed, and nobody talks about it because the FBI running Twitter decided we're not going to make a big deal out of this. This book, let's just pretend it doesn't exist. Go and read my book on Kamala Harris, right? And that no one talks about, not only do they not talk about the book on Kamala Harris, they don't talk about any of the contents. They don't talk about her father. They don't talk about her mother. They don't talk about her career as a prosecutor in California, the vicious sadism that she rained out about the death penalty, about the fake drug labs. I mean, go read about it. Nobody talks about this. I just cite Reason Magazine, the libertarian book. Woo! Lori, Strange Bellow, she's returned from the YouTube grave. Woo! Lori Spencer. So glad to have you here, Lori. We love you, Lori. Strange Bedfellows podcast. They took her channel down, which is bullshit, but here she is. Go and subscribe to Strange Bedfellows podcast. We love you, Lori. We're so glad you're here. Back from the dead. Back from the dead. We love you, Lori. Lori Spencer, folks. Lori Spencer, a hero of our community. She is reemerged. The reincarnation of Lori Spencer. Awesome stuff. So glad to have you here. And now we will get to the next super chat question. And the next one was John McCarthy said, if only Tucker had his show, I bet he would cover this. Maybe he would, Tucker Carlson showing clips of Sincera Taylor calling out wokeness. That sounds like something Tucker might do. He might do that. Tucker, he was smart enough to not play by the left-right dichotomy. He had Deirdre Griswold from the Workers' World Party on his show, and he said, I've never said this to a communist before, but I agree with you. He had Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil on his show. He's had Aaron Mate and Jimmy Dore on his show. It's possible. It's very, very, very possible. Very, very, very possible. We missed you too, Lori. We're so glad you're back. It's very, very possible that Tucker Carlson would have Sincera on his show. The question is, Sincera has been on Tucker's show before, but to fight with him. She went on Tucker's show to, kind of push her Trump derangement syndrome, drive out Trump as a fascist. She had Tucker appearances. She was on it once when Tucker had just started to be an anti-Trump, communist. But would he have her back on to talk about wokeism? Or would Sincera be willing to go on there and talk to him about wokeism? I don't know. But, we'll see. I mean, and Sincera's welcome to come on here, too. I loved that speech Sincera gave. The first 2 hours of my show was just showing Sincera Taylor's speech. We watched Sincera Taylor's anti-woke communist speech for 2 hours. We watched it. And she's welcome to come on anytime. Shoot me an email, Sincera. We'll have you on the show. Like I said, I'm not optimistic. I don't think I'll get the email, but you never know. You're welcome to come on my show anytime, Sincera. I'm a big fan of what you just did, even though we don't agree about Trump. We don't exactly agree on abortion, but there we go. Can you hand me a wrench? If you want your wrench, Lori, I'll give it to you. I'll give you a wrench. I'll give you a wrench. I'll give you a wrench here. Lori, I'll give you a wrench here. Hold tight. Hold tight, Lori. I want to make sure it's really you first. Send me a text if it's really you, Lori, to confirm it's really you before I give you a wrench. Want to be careful here, right? We got a lot of impersonators on the internet. If that's really you, Lori, you got my number. Send me a text and confirm it's really you, and I'll give you a wrench. But you got to send me a text. I got to make sure it's really you, right? We don't want any imposters here. But anyway, the next question I've got here. So just text me, right? Just send me a text, right? You've got my number. Send me a text, and then I will. And yes, it is really Lori. It's really Lori, so you get a wrench. I got to be careful there, right? Got to make sure we don't have imposters. But it's really Lori. It is really Lori, so we will give her a wrench. We will give her a wrench. You've been wrenched. You've been wrenched. You've been wrenched, Lori. You've been wrenched. So there you go. Had to make sure it was really you. Got your text message. So wrenched. Had to make sure it was really you first, right? Want to be careful. But anyway, the next question I've got on here was North Korea right to ban porn? Look, I don't know about North Korea's unique situation. First of all, I don't even know that's true, right? I mean, I don't know. How do you enforce a ban on porn, right? I mean, is it like, they go to everyone's house and look through every book, and if they see a naked picture, they arrest you? I mean, how do you ban porn, right? I mean, I don't even know what that means, but I will say that North Korea is a country that is under extreme military threat. They are locked down. They are fighting for their lives, right? They are facing sanctions. They are facing military threat, and they have a very authoritarian system in North Korea. No doubt about it. And under those circumstances, they have to take authoritarian measures that they think are necessary to defend their revolution. So based on that, I recognize North Korea's right to have censorship to some degree or other, not just of pornography, but of things they think will incite people against the government, that will incite people to support U.S. imperialism. I recognize that, and the circumstances North Korea is in, it's not the circumstances where you can just have a free and open society. I would like North Korea to be able to have a more free and open society, but that can't happen as long as they're under threat. So if you want North Korea to be more open and free, you should support ending the sanctions. You should support, opening up the negotiations, but you have to remember that, right? You have to remember that. So that's what I would say about that, is that North Korea is under unique circumstances. I don't know about this pornography ban in North Korea. I don't know how it's enforced. I don't know what they consider to be pornography. I don't even know if that's true. Somebody just super chatted me. I assume it's true, but I don't know. So based on that, I'm going to say I don't know the situation, but I respect the right of countries that are under attack to take necessary measures to defend themselves. And I know the way to make any society more free and open is to end the attacks and suppression. And the next question, was Stalin right to ban abortion? I would say that, again, let's look at the situation that they were in, right? That in Russia, that they had just had a huge civil war, and that the population of Russia was deeply conservative. And when the Bolsheviks first came to power, they were promoting extreme social liberalism. There was talk of abolishing marriage, the glass of water thing. And when Stalin came in, Leon Trotsky attacked it. He called it the thermidor in the family, right? And he said there was a move towards social conservatism. They started glorifying the Soviet family. He started, for example, he started promoting not just bans on abortion, but, he banned homosexuality. They felt it was necessary to increase the population, to, promote traditional Russian culture. I tend to be the kind of person who thinks that if you don't have a religious government, the government doesn't really, have a place to comment on things like abortion. I also tend to think if people want to be gay, they have the right to be gay, and it's not the government's place to step in and say, no, you don't have the right to do that. But I also understand that what Stalin was doing was necessary, right? That it was a step backward, that the Bolsheviks were too radical and Western, and the Russian people, the peasantry in particular, was deeply conservative. And that what Stalin created was a synthesis, right? Marxism says history, if you have a thesis, you have the antithesis, they clash, that creates a synthesis, right? And so the thesis was Bolshevism, this radical Marxist ideology. The antithesis was the deeply conservative Russian peasantry, and they came together, and you got a synthesis, which was Stalinism, right? The really existing socialism, 20th century socialism was very much, it was a combination of the most radical left-wing ideas and the deeply conservative, peasantry and population of Russia that had lived under feudalism. And you got a weird combination. Look, the way they put Lenin in a mausoleum and preserved his body, that was a reference to, the belief among the Orthodox that if your body didn't decompose, you were a saint. And the way that, they had pictures of Lenin with like a halo on his head. Pictures of Lenin were everywhere, and it was like a circle around him. He almost looked like he had a halo on his head. They were making Lenin a new saint, right? And the way Stalin became the patriarchal head of state, the father figure, who was the leader of the country. Stalin was kind of playing the role of a czar, right? But at the same time, women worked in industry alongside men. Women became university professors and electrical engineers. That wasn't how they did things in the old system. Stalin industrialized the country rapidly and raised people up out of poverty. That's not how they did things in the old system. They empowered people. So it was a synthesis of radical leftism and the traditional conservatism of the Russian peasantry, and it created a new synthesis called 20th century socialism, 20th century communism. And it was very effective. And many countries lifted their people out of poverty, wiped out illiteracy, industrialized with Stalin's synthesis, 5-year economic plans, state-run industries, collective farms, where the farms were not state-run. They were independent, where the farmers were like a cooperative that sold their grain to the state. Cooperative farms, state-run industries, mass industrialization, mass mobilization for education, all of this with a very charismatic leader who is like playing the role of a king or a czar, who's like the face of the revolution, who goes around rewarding people for working hard. That's what Kim Jong, no one, this pisses me off, okay? I just want to point this out. Kim Jong-il, do you know where he was when he died? He was on a train. He died. He was how old was Kim Jong-il when he died? He was at least 80. He was probably older than that. But Kim Jong-il was on a train going to another factory, right? He couldn't even retire. Every day, Kim Jong-il visited another factory, another farm, to reward people who worked hard, to encourage the people of Korea to work harder for the good of their country, to encourage different sections of the military. His job was to be the hero, the national celebrity, who went around rewarding people, encouraging people, giving them enthusiasm. There's a friend of mine, or an ex-friend of mine, who visited North Korea, and he went to a steel mill, and he saw what it was like in North Korea when Kim Jong-il visited, or Kim Il-sung visited the steel mill in the 80s, and how workers burst into tears when they saw Kim Il-sung. And they just started crying when they saw Kim Il-sung, and they were just like, oh my God, this is like, it was the moment of their lives. Kim Jong-il was on a train going from one place to another. Every day he visited another workplace to give out more awards to people who worked hard for the country, give them a cash bonus, give them an award, honor them for working for the good of the country. Again, they want to portray him like he lived in a palace in luxury while the people were in poverty. I'm sure he got higher, he had a more comfortable living situation. He probably had a higher living standard than most people in the country, but his job, he was the CEO. 20th century socialism. And it's not what we have now, right? The Chinese model, what they're doing in Venezuela, Nicaragua is completely different. And it's never coming back. The Soviet model is never coming back. But the Soviet way of doing things is like the whole country is one giant corporation. And the dictator, and dictator is not the right word, because they don't have absolute power, right? They can't rule by decree. They have laws and courts and procedures, and there's a lot of debate in the society. But the leader of the country, the head of state, they're like the CEO, and they work really hard. Their job is to go around the country encouraging everyone to work hard and motivating people. And that's what Fidel Castro did. Every day, Fidel Castro went and visited another workplace, another farm, another factory, another section of the military to encourage them to work hard and build up the country. And that their job, they were the CEO. The state was one giant corporation, and they were the charismatic CEO whose job it was to be productive. And they would always be like, oh my God, Fidel Castro, every May 1st, Fidel Castro would give it like an 8-hour speech. And the way I would hear about this when I was a kid, they'd be like, oh my God, what a narcissist. He spoke for 8 hours. Yeah, because it's the shareholders meeting. Bill Gates, when he was the head of Microsoft, at the shareholders meeting, the annual shareholders meeting where all the shareholders, all the investors gather, he would speak for 8 hours. And, he would speak about the same shit. He had charts and graphs, and he'd say, we're producing this much steel, we're producing this much grain, and we need to improve in this area, and we're working hard in this area. When the CEO of a major corporation that has hundreds of thousands or millions of employees gives a speech about how the corporation's doing, it's a long, complicated speech full of fucking data, right? And that's what Cuba is, and that's what North Korea is. That's what the Soviet Union was under Stalin. It was a giant corporation. The state was a giant corporation. Stalin was the CEO of a giant corporation. And yeah, every year on the socialist holiday, he would give a really long, complicated speech about we need to improve steel production in this area, and we need to build more hospitals here, and we need to strategize here, and our military is doing this because he's responsible for the whole country. And the whole population listened to it. The whole country listens to it because they're all the shareholders. They all reap the benefits of it, right? If the country gets richer, they get richer. If the country gets poorer, they get poorer. So, that's what a socialist country is like. It's like a giant corporation, and the leader is the CEO, whose job it is to go around motivating people to work really, really hard to build the country up, to industrialize, to increase productivity. And 20th century socialism, it has its problems. Cuba is adjusting more to the Deng Xiaoping model, and that's correct. It's very good. That model is very good at getting you over that first hurdle. It industrializes countries. It electrifies countries. It wipes out illiteracy. It gives people modern housing. It increases life expectancy. But once you've industrialized, it has problems, right? Once you've industrialized, that problem, it starts to change. Right. And that, in the 60s in the Soviet Union, the 60s and 70s, that system wasn't working anymore. You needed to have a market sector. You need, and Cuba, North Korea, these countries, they don't have that model anymore. Things are changing. Once you've industrialized, you have to shift away from that. But 20th century socialism was about taking countries in Russia, China, Africa, African countries, Libya under Gaddafi, Syria and Iraq. It was about these countries that had been kept poor, kept unindustrialized by Western capitalism. It was about them coming together and having a revolutionary government take control of their economy and start building and start constructing and building huge power plants, building, huge steel mills. And it was very, very effective in doing that and just lifting countries up. The problems came later. But, and someone said it starves a bunch. No, these are the countries, this cured starvation. China, there was mass starvation all the time before the communists came to power. Russia, there was mass starvation all the time before the communists came to power. It was under the leadership of the communist parties that Russia got its first steel mills and its first tractors in the countryside. China had mass starvation all the time. It was the communists who cured the famines, right? That's what you're not understanding, right? And people, they starve a bunch. No, they cure starvation. It doesn't always happen as quickly as you would like, and there's problems along the way. But Stalin, the Soviet Union, they cured starvation. It was mass starvation beforehand. They didn't even have tractors before Stalin showed up. China was the same way. They're the ones that cured starvation. Right? Maybe they didn't do so as effectively as they could have. Maybe they could have industrialized more strategically and not had as many problems along the way. But the amount of famines there were before the communists during the century of humiliation in China was insane compared to what there was, after. It's ridiculous, so, that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, next question. Do you envision the United States becoming a multi-republic socialist state like the USSR? Well, there's 2 points I want to make. First point is I support the right of any oppressed nationality within U.S. borders. If they want to break away from the United States, I support that right. If black people want, only if they want to, right? During the 1930s, the Communist Party raised the demand of self-determination for the black belt, the right of black people to break away from the United States, and form an independent black republic in the South. Only if they wanted to, though, right? They never said they had to. It was an option, right? Because the black belt, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, because the black belt region, which is called, it's not because of black people, it's because of the black soil that's very good at growing crops. That is, even today, the highest concentration of black people in America. That if that region wanted to form a separate country because they were super exploited, they had the right to do it. I agree that they have the right to do it, but at this point, it's very clear that black people in America don't want to break away from the United States. And that particular region, the people living there, they don't have a desire for their own country. So I don't go around advocating independence for the black belt, an independent black republic in the United States, because black people are largely not saying they want that. And if I, as a white guy, go around advocating that sounds like segregation, right? Right now, the majority of black people in America, as far as I can tell, want to be full and equal citizens of the United States. They want to integrate. They don't want to separate. However, if they did want to separate, I would support their right to do so, right? And the same goes for the Sun Belt, right? New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern California, the parts of the United States that were acquired from Mexico, all of California, really. The parts of the United States that are largely Chicano, right? There has been a demand in the past for them to break away from the United States and form Aztlan or the Sun Belt, right? A separate country. Now, again, right now, most Chicano Americans do not want a separate country. However, if they did, I would support their right to do so, right? But I don't go around advocating that. I don't go around telling Chicano people, hey, I'm going to break you away from the United States. You ought to be a separate country. I don't do that because that would sound like segregation coming from a white guy like me. And right now, the majority of Chicano people, as far as I can tell, don't want to form a separate country. They don't want to rejoin with Mexico or form a separate country. But if they did, I would support their right to do so. That's the first thing, right? And the same for Native Americans. And, South Dakota, North Dakota, there's a lot of Native Americans. There's a lot of Native American territories and reservations. And if those Native Americans wanted a separate country, they wanted to break away from the U.S. federal government, and they were calling for that, for a separate government that would not be recognized, that would be recognized, would be a UN member state, that would not be part of U.S. territory. I would support that if they wanted that. Right now, most Native Americans don't want that. Actually, I understand that among Native Americans, it is a pretty high percentage that do. But there's also a lot of Native Americans that serve in the military. There's a lot of Native Americans that have converted to being evangelical Christians. They don't want that. And I've been to reservations. I spent a couple weeks on a reservation in North Dakota when I was a teenager, and I was kind of blown away by how polarized the reservations are. There are some Native Americans that are very conservative, very right-wing, serve in the military, evangelical Christians. And there are some Native Americans that practice indigenous religion, that hate the white man, that, have their own ways. And right now, it seems like the majority of Native Americans do not want to separate from the United States. So I don't go around advocating that. I would support it if they wanted that, right? And that's what the national question is. All these people are like, are you for land back? Are you for decolonization? That's what this is. Communists have always said this. If oppressed people want their own territory, you support it, but it's up to them. They have the right to integrate or separate as they choose, and you cannot force it on them. That is the Marxist position. So that is my position on that issue. Now, you're asking me, well, do you advocate a country with separate republics in it, like the USSR? Right now, we put forward our 4-point program, and we envision the 4-point program, which is, rebuilding the country economically, a mass mobilization to rebuild the country, nationalization of natural resources, nationalization of banking, canceling of debt, public control of banking and the banking system, and an economic bill of rights, our 4-point plan. We put forward our 4-point plan as something that could be achieved within the context of the U.S. Constitution. Now, that's not barring the fact that eventually, in the process of revolutionary struggle, it may come to the point that we ratify a new constitution. But right now, we put forward an economic program to rescue the country, a 4-point plan that we see as taking place within the context of the U.S. Constitution. So at this time, we don't envision such a thing, right? If such a thing were to happen, if the United States were to have a new constitution, a new form of government, separate republics, etc., that would happen as a result of millions of people in America in the process of some kind of revolution advocating that. It wouldn't happen because I, on this stream, advocated it. Right? It would happen in the context of revolutionary struggle. And that's the problem with the Bobavakian people and their Constitution for the Republic of New America. Like, they don't get it, right? That I almost joke. It's funny. I was showing RCP and being really nice to them earlier, but now I'm going to diss them a little bit. I just got to say this. I used to when they came out with that Constitution, the Constitution of the New Republic of New America, Socialist Republic. It's like, wow, RCP, you're really good at the after the revolution part. It's the whole making the revolution thing you're not so good at, right? Once we have the revolution, you're set. You got the Constitution already written. But the actual, making the revolution part, you're not so good at. It's sad. The Constitution of a socialist America would be written in the process of a huge revolutionary struggle. And I know they say that in there, but they really just don't get it. That's utopian socialism right there. Right? You're writing the Constitution when your party has no base among the population, when you're a small, fringe, irrelevant group that you don't understand where revolutions come from. Revolutions don't come from Bob writing a Constitution and then, announcing to people, do you like it? That it comes from mass struggle. It comes from really existing changes in society. And that's what I get at in my book, Where is America Going? You can't declare socialism from above, and you can't just write a blueprint and take it around. That's called utopian socialism. That's not Marxism. When socialism comes to America, it'll be because of groups in America, the working class and other groups forming an anti-monopoly coalition, struggling for power, and in the process of that struggle, creating new institutions of power, etc. It's not going to come about as a result of somebody writing a constitution, and that's not how these things work. right? That, the reason the Chinese Communist Party came to power is because they became the representatives first of the, they became a really well-loved faction in the Chinese nationalist KMT. And then after that, they became the voice of the peasant movement, and they represented millions of peasants who wanted land. And then they became leaders of the struggle against Japan. And one thing led to another, and they gave voice to huge mass sentiments, and they adjusted their program, and they eventually became the ruling party, right? That you don't come to power and you don't lead a revolution by just thinking of it, right? You have to be giving voice to huge mass sentiments. There has to be a mass awakening among the population that you give voice to, you attach yourself to. This is the scientific understanding of revolution, right? Is that you represent forces way bigger than yourself in society. You give voice to the aspirations of millions. That's what a revolutionary movement really is. And that's what they don't get. So there you go. Next question. What about those who hate communism? Would saying we are good communists and bad communists be a good idea? Maybe open some minds. Well, there's a couple things to that. Okay. So first of all, one thing that I've seen communists do my whole life that annoys the shit out of me, right, is my whole life, I've been told communism doesn't work. It just failed everywhere it's ever been tried. Everywhere it's ever tried to have socialism, they all just starved and were miserable and died. And I learned that's bullshit. I learned the Soviet Union had the world's biggest steel industry, wiped out illiteracy, invented space. I learned economically, the Soviet Union and China and Cuba and many socialist countries have had huge achievements. Libya, under the leadership of Gaddafi, who was aligned with the Soviet Union, who was a socialist. Libya had the highest life expectancy in Africa. It had the world's largest irrigation system. I mean, that's a lie, right? That socialism just doesn't work. It's a big lie. My whole life, I've heard communists, in response to that lie, that socialism just never worked anywhere, just never had any successes. I've heard communists go, oh, but that just wasn't real socialism. And that's just not a persuasive argument. And it's stupid. And it's annoying. And it's like we're talking about economic data here. Basic economic data shows that socialism has had huge, astounding successes as an economic system. And when I see socialists just run away from that, oh, well, it wasn't real socialism. It's cowardly. It's obnoxious. And honestly, if everywhere socialism had ever been achieved, all it had resulted in was making people poorer, they would have a point, right? If everywhere communism had ever been tried, it never had any successes, never achieved anything, they would have a point. That's just not true. That's just not factually accurate. Okay? And we have to stand up against the lie, the myth of the 20th century. And if you don't stand up to that, you got nothing, right? If you don't stand by basic economic data that shows that our system works, God damn it, you don't stand up to that, we got nothing. So on the one hand, I don't like that. However, wokeism, separating ourselves from wokes, from communists who embrace wokeism, that's a different thing, right? And that's a totally different argument, a totally different context, that's a different thing. Saying that we're not like the wokes, we're anti-woke communists, right? Saying that we're MAGA communists, that we hate the synthetic left, that's a different thing entirely. And that's not the same as denouncing every socialist country that's ever existed, conceding the economic arguments. That's separating yourself from an anti-working class movement. The wokes hate the working class. They hate working class people because they're socially conservative. They hate working class people because they want a strong government that will get shit done. They hate working class people because they don't have time for their namby-pamby, trigger warning, safe space crap. They hate the wokes because they're more concerned about pronouns than how to feed hungry children. That's reality, right? That's reality. The working class hates wokeness, and wokes want to make them poorer. Wokes are Malthusian. Wokes want to drive down the population and grind people into poverty to save Mother Earth. Wokes hate the working class. So separating ourselves from a group of hateful, vicious, cancel culture people who are attacking the working class, that's not the same as denouncing socialist states. Those are two separate things. So yes, I think we should make a point of saying we're not woke, right? We're against racism. I'm against bullying. I'm against any demonization of people, right? But I recognize that people have religious faith and they think homosexuality is wrong. That's their business. That's their faith. And I respect that, right? And if people of religious faith feel that abortion is wrong, they have the right to say that, right? And I will work with them around economic justice and against stopping wars. And I'm not going to make that the dividing line. And I will say this is where I differentiate from certain people who will not be named, okay? Is that on the one hand, I'm not with the wokes who want to be like, oh, anyone who disagrees with trans, cancel them. Anyone who disagrees with abortion, cancel them. I'm not with the wokes. However, I'm also not with the other side. And there's a new trend, and we all know about it here. Not all of us, but a lot of us know about it. People who use words like faggot, people who, suddenly are now anti-LGBT because the wokes are pro-LGBT, people that are, saying that trans people need to be bullied, things like that. I'm not with that either, okay? And that's not cool either, all right? And I'm against all bullying. I'm against all discrimination. No one should be ashamed. However, I respect people's right to religious belief, to be conservative, but the point is to not make that the issue. And if you're going around calling people faggots, if you're going around calling people, and calling for trans people to be bullied, you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing the wokes are doing. You're making the conversation about that, not about economics. And it feeds off of each other, right? I mean, they've got the trans folks, people like Melinda Butterfield, they've got them so fucking delusional. Like Melinda Butterfield, this ex-Workers' World person, literally believes that all Republicans want to exterminate trans people. No, they don't. But they have brainwashed her with the internet to believe that, like, if Donald Trump gets elected president, they're going to line up all the trans people and shoot them. No, they're not. But if you go around calling people faggots, and if you go around advocating bullying, and if you go around saying, yeah, I'm anti-LGBT, even if that's how you really feel, right? Even if that's how you really feel, you're going to feed into that, right? I did not become a communist to debate the trans issue. I did not become a communist to debate abortion. I didn't become a communist to debate gay marriage. I don't care about that. That is not what socialist revolutions are about, okay? I am against anyone being bullied. I was the victim. I was targeted once. One time when I was in high school, I'll tell you a story on here. I haven't ever talked about this, but I'll just talk about this, right? It's worth talking about. When I was in high school, I was a freshman in high school, and my homeroom teacher, I walked into my homeroom class, right? My homeroom class, and I walked into my homeroom class, and my homeroom teacher wasn't there. He was in the teacher's lounge. He was drinking coffee. He just, he wasn't in the room. And so we were just in the room all by ourselves. No adults were around. And there were two guys in the room who started calling me anti-gay slurs. They just started calling me anti-gay slurs very loudly. And I replied to them, again, not the reply I would use now, but I was in high school, freshman in high school. And I said to them, like, you're the one with the earrings, because they both had earrings. I said, oh, you're the ones with the earrings, something like that, right? And they're like, they were talking. So anyway, then I don't know what happened next. They stopped, whatever. So I was sitting in my desk, and one of these guys grabbed me from behind and like pinned me to the back of my chair so I couldn't move. And the other one then punched me in the face as hard as he could. Right. And, and I was basically assaulted. I remember that. That was an anti-gay attack. They perceived me for whatever reason as being gay. Right. And I was assaulted. That's not cool. Right. And, I shouldn't have responded the way I did. But, that was a pretty awful thing to do. And I don't believe in bullying. I don't believe in, they got suspended from school for doing that. It was violence, but stuff like that goes on, and it's awful. Right. And, and even to this day, people get beaten up for, people get beaten up for being perceived as gay or being perceived as trans or whatever. That's not cool. Right. And we're not here to say we don't like trans people. And we're not here to say we don't like gay people. We're here to say that's not what the focus should be. We're here to say that people that have some kind of religious objection to it shouldn't get canceled. But we're also here to say that's not what this is about. right? We are about an economic program to unify the country. And we're not about polarizing the country around, are you for trans or against it? Are you for abortion or against it? We're around building an economic program. We're about around advocating an economic program to raise up the whole country, right? And it's like these people that they do both sides of it, right? They do both sides of it. And it's like, just don't. Like, you're helping them, right? And we know, I mean, there's a lot of these people that are in our community, that are in our wing of things. I shouldn't say they're in our community. They hate me, I think. I don't keep up with who's mad at me this week. I don't care. You know, they're all mad over some petty bullshit. But like, the point is, we should focus on what socialism is about: class struggle, opposing wars, etc. Not focus on the culture wars. And some people think that you're being a heroically anti-woke person if you take the opposite position of the wokes, right? And that I don't agree with. I absolutely don't agree with that. And you're helping them. You're helping wokeness if you do that, right? If you're going around promoting anti-gay bigotry, right? Going around, I mean, you know, if you personally, your religious belief is against homosexuality, I respect that. That's your business, right? If your religious belief is against gay marriage, against abortion, I respect that. But going around calling people faggots, going around, you know, you're just playing in. The wokes want you to do that because that feeds into their narrative that there's going to be a trans genocide. They're really good at triggering people, right? Wokeism is about, it's a psychological manipulation, making these people feel like victims, etc. How about we just don't talk about it? How about that? How about we focus? We focus on raising people out of poverty. How about we focus on opposing the wars and not polarizing around these kinds of issues, right? How about we do that, right? How about we focus on an economic program, right? And there are certain people that are in our, you know, that are in our sphere, I guess, and they think that somehow by taking the opposite position, you know, on these issues, they're helping. They're not. Honestly, they're not. How about we talk about economics? We talk about class struggle. You know, how about we do that? And, and I'm tired of these people. And you know, one thing that annoys me, okay, and this has always annoyed me. I take this shit seriously. I really do, right? You see all these books behind me. I've been doing this my whole adult life. I take this shit very seriously. I have studied in depth Marxism and communism. I take this seriously. And so many spaces I go to, instead of appreciating me for doing that, people see me as a threat, right? And they see me as a threat because I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about. I actually take this seriously. And so their response is not to go, oh, wow, let's appreciate Caleb. Let's work with Caleb around this. Their response is to go, oh, how do we destroy Caleb for doing that? I'm so tired of that, right? I'm so tired of that because certain people who have kind of latched on to what I'm doing, right? They saw me with my anti-woke communism. They saw me with my pro-Russia, pro-China communism that said it was not focused on woke insanity. They saw that and they paid attention to me and they kind of listened to me for a little bit and then they commodified it for themselves, and fuck you for doing that. You know what I mean? I'm tired of it. I really am. You know what I mean? I have been nothing but kind to these people, and they saw what I was already doing. And some of these people, not all of them, again, this is a broad category. There's a number of people like this. Some of these people, they don't have the understanding that I have, right? They don't have the understanding that I have. And, instead of learning from me, they see me as a competitor. They view this as a competition. You're with their brand or my brand. And so they see any way they can denigrate me and attack me as a win for them. And it's fucking stupid, right? I'm building a real organization. I'm not building an internet fan club. So, I'm not going to win the internet game. I'm not going to win the internet game. And I know that. I'm building a in real life community, a real organization. That's what I'm doing. I'm building a real in real life community of people, so that when the storm comes, we'll have somewhat of a network to stand up against it, to stand up against the wave of liberalism, to stand up against the insanity that's coming. A storm is coming. U.S. society is going to head toward a really serious crisis pretty soon. And I'm trying to build something, a ship that can withstand the storm. That's what I'm trying to do. That's all I'm trying to do here. And for the people who supposedly agree with a lot of what I say on these streams, who supposedly, have the same outlook, but then are looking for any opportunity to tear me down, to smear me, it's like, seriously, it's really getting old, right? And it's the same crew of people that also think the way they're going to win, the way they're going to win is that they're going to, they're going to do the opposite of the wokes. They're going to, just like the wokes talk about the trans issue constantly, they're going to talk about the trans issue constantly, just take the opposite position. No. How about we repolarize around real issues? And I'm seriously, I really don't, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? The wokes are all pro-choice, so you become anti-choice. Great. That helps. The wokes are all pro-gay marriage. You become anti-gay marriage. Great. The wokes are all pro-trans. You're anti-trans. Great. You're feeding the problem. Talk about economics. Talk about class struggle. Talk about anti-imperialism. Talk about freeing Julian Assange. Talk about the Uhuru movement. I don't, and it's obnoxious to me, right? That these people think that somehow that's what it means to be a revolutionary, is to just be the mirror image of the wokes, right? And then they attack me because I actually take this seriously. I'm actually building a real organization. I'm not just on the internet, trying to be popular, trying to be sexy. I'm actually trying to build a real organization. And so then they see me as a competitor. They're threatened because I actually know about this stuff. I'm not faking it. Some of these people, some of them are better than others. Some of them are more well-read than others. But some of these people, I think you all know who I'm talking about. Ask them to defend communism sometime. Ask them, just basic anti-communist questions. Didn't Stalin kill millions of people? Just ask them that stuff like that and see what they say. They can't do it. And so it's like, why do it then? Or why not be friends with me and let me do it? And it's obnoxious, right? It's like, basically they saw what I was doing. They saw me doing things I actually believe in. And then they thought, oh, I can use elements of this for my grift. And then I'm going to, attack Caleb. Good for you. Good for you. You know what I mean? Good for you. Good for you. And it's rigged. It's all rigged. It's all fucking rigged. Okay. It's rigged. It's all rigged. And I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And, you can attack me all you want. You can make fun of me all you want. And I'm tired of this, right? The wokes all hate me. And then half the people who agree with me hate me. The internet's a fucking cesspool, right? In the real world, the way you get shit done is you find people who have similar views, and you find things you can agree with, and you try to get things done. You don't sit there and go, oh, someone sounds like me. How can I find some way to make them wrong so I can have my brand grow and not theirs? It's this stupid competitive attitude, and social media is absolutely toxic. The only reason I'm on here streaming right now is because I'm trying to build a community. That's the only reason I'm on here. I mean, there might be 100 people watching, might be 200 people watching. I am trying to build an in real life community. I'm trying to build a real organization. That's the only reason I'm on here. That's the only reason any of this matters. If 1,000 people were watching, if 1 million people are watching, if 10 people are watching, I'm building a community because there's a storm coming, because our country is in crisis, because of all the things I wrote about in this goddamn book that I'm sure certain people would never could understand. I see a job that must be done. I see a task that must be done. There's a community that needs to be built, and that's what needs to be done. Okay? That's why I'm here. And I'm not, that's why I'm here. So I'm just telling you about me. Judge other people. Jesus Christ in the Bible, he said, ye shall know them by their fruits. And I try to live by that. What have you actually built? What have you actually done? What have you actually built? What have you actually done? CPI, we've built a real organization. We've withstood real attacks. We put on real conferences. We've had real events. And, you can judge us by what we've achieved. We've published real books. We've had real events. And, are we the vanguard? Nope. Are we the leaders of the revolution? Nope. We're doing the best we can. Right. And, Maybe somebody else thinks we should be doing something different. Okay. All right. Maybe they do. That's for them to make the case, but know them by their fruits. Know them by their fruits, because it's about what do you achieve in the real world. That's what it's about at the end of the day. It's about what you achieve in the real goddamn world, right? That is what it really matters about. It's not about how many likes you get. It's not about how many shares you get. It's about what you build in the real world, the real connections that you build. That is what's important. And I'm glad that Panos appreciates that because, that's my opinion. Anyway, and if this ends up getting me, if I end up getting attacked and a bunch of hit pieces and all that in the next few days, whatever, I'll survive. Annoying. Maybe I shouldn't have even said all of that, but whatever. All right. Have you heard about the German recession? Yeah, Germany's economy is really suffering. The attacks on Russia and the isolation of their economy they're really suffering. And, it absolutely is. Germany has economically been devastated by the anti-Russia stuff. The energy costs have killed people. This whole situation, they're trying to create economic hardship in order to beat down the lower levels of capital. The monopolists want to create a bad situation so they can eat up the smaller fish, the lower levels of capital. That's what they're trying to do. So, look, I don't want to have any enemies. If people are friendly to what we're about, they agree with me about Russia and China, I want to be friendly with them. But if people want to be hostile to me or they want to, kick me out of the club, look, these people always find a way to exclude me. I don't know who they are, right? But I'm never part of the club, right? There's always certain people who just get blasted on social media, and there are always people who don't want to build any real organization, and they always find a way to lock me out. And it's annoying. And, I learned a long time ago that, if you want to build something, you got to build it yourself, because these assholes, I'm never part of the club. I always get locked out. There's always certain people who the situation is rigged for them, and it's annoying. It's very annoying, right? And, I don't want to be old man yells at cloud, right? Because there's many people who are online who have YouTube channels, and they just, if they see somebody come along and they say one thing they disagree with, they just turn into old man yells at cloud. I don't want to be that. I'm not old man yells at cloud. I just did a whole stream promoting Sansara Taylor, even though I've had it out with the RCP, they don't like me, whatever. I just did a whole stream about that because I want to actually get something done, right? And it's the same with all these people, right? It was the same, even these woke people. I tried to work with them. I went on Vosh. I tried to be friendly. I'm too nice. I'm too goddamn nice. But I'm nice because I want to build real alliances, and I don't want to make enemies out of anybody. But it's like these people have, I've just been attacked from every angle because I'm sincere. It's like what happened to Sincera. It's a lot like what happened to Sincera. I actually believe in this shit, and I'm actually doing what you're supposed to do, and I get attacked, right? There's all these people on the internet, big fish with huge accounts and little fish with tiny accounts, who all they do is throw shit at people. That's all they do. They throw shit at people. And it's annoying, right? And it's, the wokes are the most notorious for it, but there's anti-woke people too. And they sit there and they watch other people do things and they complain about it. I don't want to be one of those people. I want to actually build something in the real world, which means I have to get along with people. It means I have to pay attention to people I might disagree with. That's what it means, right? You have to be able to get along with people. You have to be able to find common ground with people who are not exactly where you're at. And I have done that endlessly with so many different people. I've tried to find common ground, and I've had some success recently. There have been friends in odd places recently. There's been new alliances recently. But there's also been a lot of people that, again, claim that they kind of agree with me, but they always find some reason to exclude me or lock me out or talk shit or whatever. Fuck them. I can't keep track of it. The amount of people, I cannot keep track of who's mad at me this week. All these social media people, I'll swear, these people, these influencer types, They all are the most petty, egotistical. Somebody walked in my shot. Oh, there was a Russian flag next to me. Oh, oh my God, someone was somewhere. What if my picture gets taken with them? Oh my God, I don't want to be with this. Oh, shut up. I'm so tired of it. We got to build a real organization, okay? We have to build a real organization because a real storm is coming. Get over it. There's just so many petty egos flying around. There's the Uhuru movement is facing 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison. And you're worried that somebody walked next to you with a Russian flag? Right? The Uhuru movement is facing 10 years in prison. You're worried that I might be at the same event as you because then, oh my God, what if you're in a picture with me? Grow up, people. Grow up. I have been canceled so many times and I keep doing this, because I believe in it. And it's like our country is on the brink of a new world war. We're in the brink of an all-out police state. And these people are just so petty and caught up in their own little egotism. And it's really fucking annoying. It's really annoying. These social media personalities annoy the shit out of me because it's like I'm trying to do, in a lot of cases, stuff they claim to agree with. And they always find some petty, nitpicky, and it's this little elitist, I'm better than you. Oh, I don't want to be associated with someone. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care. Right? The only reason I'm on here doing these streams is because I want to build a real life community to get some real shit done, to have real conferences, to publish real books, to make real circles of people, to do real activism. I want to help the Uhuru movement. I want to build real anti-war protests. That's what I'm trying to do. And, it annoys me. It annoys me. And thank you, Black Libertarian. Thank you. It annoys me, the amount of people who just want to gripe and complain and gossip, and it's all this vain thing. I want to be famous on the internet. I want attention. Grow up. Grow up. First thing you need to know about this is anybody who does this kind of stuff and takes it seriously is going to get canceled. They're going to throw everything they can at you. They're going to call you every dirty word ever. Okay, so no matter what you do, if you do this kind of work, you're getting canceled. So Sarah Taylor got canceled for organizing for a woman's right to an abortion, even though wokes agree with that. But because she was not a woke, because she's an obscure ultra-leftist, Maoist, communist, they canceled her for it. Right? Look what they did to her. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're a sincere anti-imperialist who doesn't want a nuclear war, who doesn't want a low-wage police state, if you're up against this system and you're vocal about it, they're going to smear you. They will go out of their way to convince everyone that you're the most evil groomer, Nazi, pedophile, rapist, white supremacist, Nazbol. That's what they're going to do. That's par for the course now. That's just what they do. So if you, number one, can't handle that, and if number two, you're going to play this game of like, oh, I don't want to associate, you really don't belong in this, right? And at the end of the day, your channel gets taken down, you just go away. Right? I mean, social media, it just goes away. Right? None of that really has value. What matters is the networks, the relationships, the community that you build, the support system, the resources that you build up. That's what really matters, okay? That's what really matters. Your Twitter can go away like that. In a heartbeat, they can make your Twitter go away. In a heartbeat, they could make this YouTube channel. Look what they did. Well, look what they did to Lori, right? In a heartbeat, her whole channel was just gone. Your social media can vanish like this. It can just go whoop, whoop, and be gone. Do you think that they're targeting the Uhuru movement right now because of their YouTube channel? Do you think they're targeting the Uhuru movement now because of their Twitter? No. No, they're not. They are targeting the Uhuru movement because they've done what is a real threat to this system. They provide services. They have actual infrastructure. And they've done something on a very small scale in St. Louis, Missouri, and in St. Petersburg, Florida. On a very small scale, they've created some farmers markets. They've created some services for pregnant women in the Black community. That is what scares the ruling class. They are terrified of dual power. They're terrified of real infrastructure. And the Uhuru movement did it on a very small scale, and they dared to be friends with Russia, and they dared to be friends with China and be anti-imperialist. That's what scares the ruling class, and that is what you need to remember. Let me just end my stream. I don't know why I got into this bad place all of a sudden, but I just decided to go here because this is stuff that's been on my mind, and I don't know. I'm really worried, honestly, now that, bad people are going to find this, and everyone loves to make people fight on social media. Let me just put this out there. There is the most petty behavior I have seen on social media is these people, it's like their job to make people fight, right? They watch my stream and they find something I said and they try to say, oh, what that was directed at so-and-so. Then they run to that other person to try and stir them up. What are you accomplishing by doing that? And there are so many people on the internet that it is like their fucking job. They think it's like makes them special if they can incite two social media personalities to fight with each other, right? And they run, and people do it to me all the time. Did you hear what so-and-so said about you? Oh my God, did you hear what so-and-so said about you? No, and I don't fucking care. I don't care, right? Please. And, and it's the most petty behavior. What are you accomplishing? How about you bring people together? How about you point out something that I agree with somebody on, somebody I can highlight, right? And, it's really annoying, right? And so if my rant just now, where I did not name any names, I did not specify who I'm talking about. I didn't. My rant that I just gave right now, I did not specify any names. If that causes people to blow up at me, I will do my best to just ignore it. It may be difficult, and I may not be successful in that. I may end up tweeting back at somebody, but, these people can demolish me. They're bigger than me. They got bigger accounts than me. They can totally demolish me. They can incite all their followers against me. There's not much I'll be able to do about it. So maybe they will. I don't know. But I had to say that because I'm doing something different, and I don't appreciate the hostility I've gotten from people. But that said, all of that said that I just said, I have one request from you tonight, just one request, which is the documentary that Peter Coffin made. That documentary that Peter Coffin made about CPI that's linked down below? Go and send it to a few of your friends. If you haven't watched it already, go and watch it. And if you have watched it, send it to a few of your friends. Somebody sent it to 12 relatives, right? Somebody sent it to 12 of their relatives. Just a beautiful film that shows what our community is really about. Shows what it's like behind the scenes, 53 minutes and 55 seconds long. A beautiful documentary about the Center for Political Innovation in our recent conference we did, Summit Against Hypocrisy, right? My request, if you can please do this, send this to as many people as you possibly can. Show them what our community is really like. Show them what CPI has to offer that is so much more than just an internet thing. We're building an in real life community, and show this documentary to people. It's got almost 2,000 views already, but it should have way more than that. Show people what our community is about. Show people what we're really doing here. This isn't just a YouTube channel. This isn't just some books I wrote. This isn't just a guy on here rambling about ideas. We're trying to build some real infrastructure to do some real shit. Send this documentary. Send it to somebody who would never watch something like this. That brother or sister you've got who never is interested in your politics, send it to them. That cousin you have, that person who goes to university and in class with you, who's kind of your friend, but they don't get your politics. Show this film to people who would never go looking for a documentary about a communist group. That's what you need to do. That's what I'm asking you to do. That it can be your Memorial Day gift to me personally, to our organization. Show this film to 12 people, to 15 people, to 20 people. Think of people who would never go looking for this and say, you know what? If you're bored, this is something you've never seen before, watch this film. That is my advice. Find people who would never go looking for this, would never be interested in this, and send it to them and see if you can get them to watch this film about the Center for Political Innovation. If you could do that for me, that would be the best gift you could give me. That would be bigger than any super chat you could give me. That would be bigger than any donation you could give me on Patreon. Find 10, 12, 15 normies, 15 average people who would never go looking for this and show them this film. That would make me happy. And you know people. There's people in your class at the college. There's people who work with you at your job. You've got relatives in your family. You got people you went to school with back in the day. Show them this movie. That is my request. Show them the movie about the CPI conference. Show them what our community is like up close. Show them this beautiful film. It's got Jyoti Brar in it. It's got Peter Coffin in it. It's got, Garland Nixon in it. It's got Dr. Wilmer Leon in it. It's got Scott Ritter in it. Show them the movie. Show them the movie. That is my request. If you want to make me a happy person, find a few normies and show them this film. That is my request. If you could do that for me, you'd make me happy. Sorry I ended on a negative note here. But, it's been 3.5 hours. This is one of the longest streams I've done in a while. I think I did 4 hours once. So it's not the longest stream I've ever done, but it's up there. So my voice is about to give out. So I got to say goodnight for now. I'm going to put on the closing music. I'll be back tomorrow night, just like every other night. It's going to be awesome, folks. We just keep marching ahead. We love everybody. We'll work with anybody. We're trying to build a working class anti-imperialist movement in our time. That's what we're doing. I'm exhausted. And I'm saying goodnight for now. Upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.